Evening, everyone. Today we are joined by Jayda Fransen, ex-Britain First Deputy. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks, Sean. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad. Not bad. Long day. But today is about you and your interview, mate. All right. So,
Okay. Let's see how we get on.
what I want to do, all right. What I want to do is I want to start off from the beginning. So I want to start off with your early years. So, first thing I'd like to ask you is where you actually was born and where you grew up.
Okay, I was born in South East London,
Yep.
specifically in Lambeth, in South East London, and that's where I grew up. I grew up on the Sydenham Hill estate, which is not far from Crystal Palace. Um, yeah, and I mean, I did move around quite a bit, but as I got older, really. But I spent most of my childhood, all of my primary school years were in that sort of area. So. And that was, gosh, you asked when? That was in 1986. So I'm showing
Yeah.
my age here. I'm not quite 40, but nearly.
Okay. And sort of like, what was it like in your area where you grew up? Was it? Do you know what I mean? Was it all right where you was in
Well,
like around in Lambeth that way? Was it?
yeah. So, I was born in Lambeth, that borough, but I grew up in the Lewisham borough, actually, which anyone who knows South East London and knows
That's
Lewisham, I think
rough.
you know Lewisham. Yeah, it's rough.
That's rough. Yeah.
Even like back when I lived there, it was rough, but now it's a completely different ball game. So, like when I was growing up in that part of London, there were immigrants, but actually there were very small numbers of them. And like for example, my primary school, in the entire class, there were two black kids. There was one black boy, one black girl, and the
Yeah.
rest of everyone else in the class was just white British. And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't looked at the demographic stats of the primary school there, but I can absolutely say with some certainty that that would not be the case now. So the demographic shift there has been significant in that part of the, and in all honesty, like there is not enough tea in China that would make me move back to London.
Yeah.
But I know that you know London well as well, so it's just like, I mean, you're quite a bit younger than me, I think, but I think the place is just
36.
how old?
36.
All right, okay, not that much younger than I'm 39.
Yeah.
So, but you know, like since even from when we were young, it's changed a lot. It's changed rapidly. So,
Yeah.
and that trajectory really is just climbing. Now, I think you know whites were a minority in London, and Southeast London in particular is dangerous. Gangs and it was bad when I was young, but now it's wouldn't go near it.
It's all still postcode wars.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's like,
Gang postcode was if you live in this postcode. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? We've got a problem with you. Like, we don't like you if you live. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
In
and it
like,
was kind of like
yeah,
that when I was young. It was a little bit like that. It was when I was younger. You had like New Cross, Dulwich, Peckham, and there were, and I didn't really
mm,
get. Obviously, I didn't get involved in any of it because that was mainly like any ethnic minorities that were in that part of London. That was who was involved in that, and you had some white Brits involved in it as well. But
mm,
it was quite small. But I guess from what I gather now, it's bad. It's rife.
yeah.
Mm.
So, what about your family? Sorry, what about your like? I'm not going to talk about your family, but like, was there any politics or religion in your family? That's the only thing I wanted to.
Not
That's it.
re
Really.
not well, my family aren't political, and
Okay.
in terms of
Atheists.
oh, no, so they're not political. In terms of religion, nominal Christianity, but not believers. So my
Right.
grandmother, who's from the south of Ireland, she passed
Oh,
away now.
okay.
Yeah, she's from County Cork. She was a little devout Irish Catholic. And when I was young, because my immediate family weren't Christian, I used to go with her to church. That's how because I was a Catholic for like 30 odd years and then I became a Protestant. But that's how I spent my early years coming up through the Catholic Church because of my dear old nan. She was so sweet, just the sweetest little thing. But she passed away in 2011. But other than that, no, my family weren't political and weren't religious. So how I
Oh,
became a political religious extremist, who knows?
right. Okay. And what would like your so like basically before like all the before all your activism and stuff, Like, was there any early jobs that you like, you know, that you was doing before you decided to take the step down the activist route and, you know, all that stuff?
Yeah, yeah. So, well, I worked from a very young age. I wasn't very studious, so I went out. I wanted to just get out and go and work. And I did all sorts. I mean, from hairdressing, working in shops, working in recruitment agencies and admin offices. And then when I was very young, I landed a job in a law firm, and an opportunity sort of arose for me to take on a caseload because one of the qualified solicitors had left.
Yeah.
So I then became like a fee earner at the firm, and then I studied law in the evening. I didn't go through college, and I mean, I didn't even finish school. So this is me doing a university degree in the evening
Okay.
after being a real tear away at school.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I on the line, I would qualify and take over the firm, and that was my life goal. Like, I thought, after having quite a, you know,
was that your ambition to become a lawyer, to
yeah,
go
like
and work as a
that was the
solicitor?
plan. That was the plan. I was practicing law. I was I had big caseloads, and that was the plan. It was all on track. And then one day, you probably wouldn't remember this if you're not in the industry, but there was a specific date when we all got a call to say that the principal persuasion of our firm was non-contentious. So we would do like civil stuff like conveyancing, wills, probate, and a lot of that had been shipped out to places like Tesco's. They started doing conveyancing. So the long and short of it was, we had a call from our indemnity insurance provider, and they said, you've got to shut the firm overnight. So I was like heartbroken, because I've been studying for years at university. I'm working in this firm. This is my whole life. I've got my whole life planned out after having quite a troubled start, let's say. And it just went like that. And I was kind of heartbroken. So I went away. I did I worked at a couple of other firms, and then I thought, I just need to leave. I'm going to just leave the legal industry altogether. And so I actually went on to open up a recruitment consultancy.
How did that go? Was that all right?
Yeah, very good, very lucrative. Yeah, probably the best money I've ever earned. And hard graft. Don't get me wrong. Like, long hours. You got to be up
a lot of admin.
Yeah, but I don't mind that. I'm a workaholic, so it was good. And that was what I was doing when I first got involved in activism. My attention was pricked whilst I was working at the law firm, because during that time, the 7/7 bombings happened, and I was working at a law firm in London. And so I started to think, hold on a minute, what's the motivation for this attack? So it pricked my attention, but I didn't really get involved in activism until a few years later. And at that point, I was running a recruitment consultancy.
Nice. Okay, mate. All right. So, yeah, when did you first, when you started enrolling in your activism stuff, when did you first get politically active? As in, when did you go on a protest? When your first protest that you went on?
Well, so I was kind of on my soapbox.
How long ago was that? How old was you when you went on your first protest? Who was it with?
In my 20s.
Yeah.
I was on my soapbox for a bit. Back in the day, Twitter used to be, and Facebook just used to be a party, right? Twitter's turned back into that a bit now, but it was like anything goes. So, and Twitter wasn't a massive thing like it is now. So I was on there, I was kind of on my soapbox, but I went to a few EDL rallies. That was kind of my intro into right-wing activism. I went to a few EDL rallies, and I went to like a couple smaller and then some of the big ones. And I met some amazing people on those rallies. And there were like lots and lots of people there that were very well-meaning. There were some people that were there, you could tell they were just there for like an ease up. You know, they were really like, but you get this everywhere. Wherever there's a public protest,
you'll get like a certain you'll get like a certain group of people that have just come there. They just want to get tanked up and that, and just have a few beers and
and maybe have a scrap, something like that. But I think what became quite apparent after I'd attended a few of the EDL rallies was that there wasn't any real structure. So there wasn't, even though like Tommy Robinson and his cousin Kev Carroll were the sort of leaders at the time, there wasn't any real hierarchy. It was all a bit of a mishmash, and it was just a gathering of people, but it would get out of hand, and then there were, you know, there were just things that I didn't really like. So there was a lot of drugs, and not everyone, obviously. There were some lovely people involved, but
it's like select few.
Yeah, and I just thought, well, I'm looking for something a little bit more structured that that acknowledges the problems, but also maybe wants to provide solutions. So one of the guys that I knew that was involved in the EDL, a friend of mine at the time, he said to me, "Why don't you come to a Britain First rally?" And I said, "Well, I didn't really know anything about Britain First at the time. It was because it was tiny. Like, this was before Britain First was really on the map." And anyway, long and short of it, I went along, attended the rally, and then I think we know where it went from there.
Yeah, loved it.
Yeah,
all
many
right.
years of it.
But how did you discover Britain First and actually join?
Well, I went to this rally with this friend of mine, and Paul Golding was there, and as a fella, his name was Brad. I haven't spoken to him in donkey's years, but I don't know if he's still around on the nationalist thing. I mean, he hasn't been involved in any of the groups that I've been involved in, so I think he probably just left, you know. But yeah. So he said to me, "Come along," because I said at the time, like I said, I'm not really sure about these guys. I'll go and have a look. So I went along, spoke to Paul Golding, and there was just a handful of other people there. It was quite a small gathering, and I said, "Look, I've seen some of your stuff online. They were really in their infancy." And I said, where do I stand? At the time, I was a Catholic, obviously female. I was like, is there any room for me in this? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. So I went along to a couple of their protests, and then there was a meeting that they had in Coventry. I think this going back a long way. It's going back maybe more than 10 years ago. But they said, could you...
You was a Roman Catholic to start off with?
I was, yeah, for many years.
Oh, okay. So I just wanted to pick up on that, because obviously you said, like, now you're Christian now, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, Protestant now.
Carry on, mate.
Yeah, so they had a meeting in Coventry donkey's years ago now. I don't even know, over a decade ago. And they said, could you come to that? So I said, all right. So at that point, they said, there was Paul Golding, Jim Dowson was involved in Britain First at the time. So that's how long ago it was, because he set it up. And they said, basically, look, you've got a background in law and business, and would you consider working for us and helping us grow the party, like in the background, so helping out with admin and stuff, because you've got a background in that kind of thing. So I said, yeah, but I run my own business, so you kind of have to make sure that you manage the two, right? You can't just become a full-time. So I said, I'll certainly help, and I'll do whatever I can to grow the party, but I have to make sure that my business doesn't suffer. And famous last words. Within, I think, about a year, I'd shut the business and was just full-time working for Britain First.
Full throttle with it all, yeah.
No, just away with it, yeah. And you know, I suppose at the time it was kind of like a unique set of circumstances, because there weren't a lot of women, or any women really, that were prominent, for want of a better word, in the right wing, like putting their face out there, and so the press had a field day.
Would you say you was quite at the forefront of like the right wing scene, like as a woman? Do you know what I mean? Like, there wasn't many women that were as vocal as you at that time. There
wasn't anyone.
That would be sort of like leading from the front, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There weren't any women. I mean, I suppose you could say like Katie Hopkins came along quite a few years later, but really, I mean, Katie's views and eyes don't align, to be fair. But really, at that time, she was like a, I don't know, what do they call them? Like a Z-list celebrity. Like, she was famous for being on a reality show or something. And at that time, she wasn't at all right wing. I think that people came to right wing thinking. It seemed like a lot of women came to it later than I did. So I was like this woman that was rolled out at the beginning. And of course, the press had a field day, because they're thinking, well, who's this woman? And obviously, I did used to. I was leading at the front, so it was me on the front page of the papers, holding a cross, or confronting Anjem Chowdhury at his house, or chasing Abu Izzadeen down the street. You know, these are convicted terrorists, and we just used to just go after them like every week. And of course, there wasn't there wasn't a group doing that, first of all, until we started, but there certainly wasn't a woman at the front. So very quickly, it became, I realised that the press really had it in for me. The whole of the British establishment just totally had it in for me. And for probably the first 5 years, there was probably a new story every single week without fail, or something, because we were active so much. Every week,
you was on the ground so much that it just built up the momentum for it, didn't it?
Yeah, and we could just like anything we did, no one else had done it, so the stuff that we were doing was quite extreme, but no one had heard about it. This was, you got to remember, this is a time when people didn't even realize that we had like huge Muslim communities in the UK, and so I was like taking a camera and a cross and saying, I tell you what I'll do, I'll walk through them and prove to you that there are Muslim communities and that they're very hostile to us. And this had never been done before. And so it made...
Is that when you was walking with the cross?
Oh yeah, that was one. Yeah. I used to take that cross a lot of the time. Yeah. That's kind of my resident cross. But yeah, so it was wild times. There was a lot of tension, a huge amount of support, which was great. But also a lot of backlash. And as you probably know, like the left are vicious. So all of this came at a big price.
I mean, I've had it. You know, I've been to protests. I think when I went to the UTK, but I mean prior to that, I went to the Thistle City Barbican Hotel. That was housing illegal migrants, and I was down there. And obviously, like I say, I was walking through a wave of, do you know what I mean, the Antifa, you know, stand up to racism crew, and obviously then you had, and obviously Narinder Kaur was at the forefront of the stand up to racism with the placards. I mean, when I spoke to Mike Graham on Talk TV. This is way before he recently just lost his job on Talk TV, and he interviewed me because he wanted my eyewitness account of what I saw just on the ground, right? And I basically just told him what I saw, and I said to him, like, look, I mean, all these placards that this group's holding, all stand up to racism mob, like with Narinder Kaur and that, they were all identical. So clearly that was being funded by someone, right?
Yeah.
They were completely identical. Like, well, where do they get all these placards from? They're all identical to each other. Like, do you know what I mean? So it's like, that's when I understood from that point. That was so who's funding this lot then? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all they can obviously give you is when you're stood there and you're in front of them, right? They come out with the two same chants every time, and that'll be either Nazi scum off our streets, or, you know, do you know what I mean, or refugees, welcome here, refugee, or all this lot, and that's all they can say. But I mean, predominantly, I don't understand how they can, you know, say that people like myself would be a Nazi, because that just doesn't make sense. Do you know what I mean? I don't support Hitler. I don't. Do you know what I mean? He was a wrong one, but
words used to mean something, right? So like Nazi.
This is what I'm saying, but for me myself, I'm not fazed by nothing. I'm one of the people where words don't bother me.
Good.
Right?
Good.
Do you know what I mean? Sticks and stones, like the old days. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't give a monkeys. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like it goes over my head. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, you know, with in regards to the protests and stuff, that was all them lot. But I don't think they're all there, all the left mob, to be fair. I mean, they're all with the woke ideology, aren't they? And with the 1,000 genders, the 1,000 gender identities that they agree with and they believe in, especially that Zach Polanski from the Green Party. Do you know what I mean? He's a bit of a nutter, isn't he?
They're all hardline Marxists, so they're not wired up right.
What I don't understand is how they can be so backwards. I'm all for. See, I've always said, and I will always stand up for common sense, right? I am all for common. I'm a common sense person, right? I can't stand all the woke ideology because to me it's just backwards, and it's just like I just look at people that agree with all that. I look at them as mongs. Do you know what I mean? But that's just the way that's my personal opinion. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, so back to you. So I want to move on to your peak years, right? So mosque invasions, Christian patrols. Whose idea originally was that?
The Christian patrol, I think I came up with the concept in reaction to theirs, right? So basically in London, we had seen these Muslim patrols. I don't know if you remember. This is how the Christian patrols came about.
Yeah.
In London, there were Muslims walking through the street saying, this is a Muslim area, no holding hands. This is a Muslim area, no drinking alcohol. You know, that skirt is too short and all of this, right? And anyway, I remember seeing it and thinking, yeah, that'll be right. Like, this is my city. So so I said, right, let's go and do a Christian patrol, you know, because the thing is, the authorities were so reluctant to act against this. Like, these men are literally marching through the street and harassing people and saying, this is a Muslim area. No, it's not a Muslim area. It's a Christian area. It's the capital. It's London. It's ours. And your guests here. And your guests that really are outstaying your welcome. So yeah, I said, like, let's do a Christian patrol in response to that. I think the mosque invasions, they were called mosque invasions, but really we were going into mosques. But I think the mosque invasions were, I think they were Paul's idea. But again, like I was very sort of prominent in those things. So that's where a lot of the tension came from. You know, I had a lot of death threats and people would attack me. I got spat at outside the East London Mosque and attacked, and just, you know, because we were going into these mosques, right?
How did you deal with that, Jayda? How did you deal and cope with people spitting on you, like spitting in your face and like, you know, you receiving multiple death threats? How did you, like, mentally, how did you cope with that, mate? How did you deal with all of that stuff? Did it affect you psychologically, like, in a way? Like, did it ever, like, start to grind you down a bit?
Well, not
To the
grind
point
you
where,
down.
do you know what I mean? You felt like you needed a breather, you needed a break from it all. Like, it's getting a bit much for me. I need to take time and reset.
No, that actually wasn't the biggest pressure in my life at that time, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
No, I kind of embraced it, right? So I'm a Christian and I know my Bible. I understand the scriptures say that we will be persecuted for Jesus' sake. And I knew that if I was going into these areas and talking to these people about Jesus and proclaiming Christianity and proclaiming Christ is King, I knew that I was going to face backlash. These people don't know the Lord. They're not with the Lord. We don't worship the same. The God of the Bible, the creator, is not the same Allah that they worship in their Quran. And I knew ultimately that there was going to be hostility. The hostility, though, didn't just come from the Muslims and the immigrants. It also came from the left. And so it was strange because, you know, as a woman as well, being like physically attacked, spat at. I had twice I had my house attacked. Once they threw white paint all over the house. Another time they smashed a load of windows. I had to move 11 times in 11 years. I had security measures everywhere I went. It was crazy. And I suppose.
Who put those security measures out in place for you? I mean, was that personal security that you paid for, or was that security issued to you by the police?
No. So we had Britain First had like a volunteer security team, if you like.
Right.
But the measures that were put on me were by the police because I'd had Osman warnings. So basically they were saying, like, you know, you've received these death threats. And so, like, on one occasion, they sent razor blades through the post and said, we're going to throw acid in your face. By the time before Christmas, you're getting acid in the face.
Disgusting.
So, yeah. Right. And so, and the police came to me and said, listen, we've got intel that tells us this is credible. And so at that point, it was like, this is special branch at that point, coming and saying, this is going to happen. Like, they're going to get you. And so you're just like, you don't know when this is going to happen. And I'm out all the time, and I'm not going to stop going out. Like, that was what they wanted, was probably for me to cower and say, I'm not going to do it. But I don't even know how, but somehow I was like, no, I'm just going to keep going. And, but it was tense. Like, I remember going to a rally once. We held a rally in Rochdale, and the police said, we've got intel that there's a guy with a knife, and he's going to stab you. And he's going to kill, if he gets to you, he's going to kill you. And I was like, well, what are you going to do then? You know, I'm like, I had this volunteer security team of men who, most of them were veterans, really lovely guys. And they're saying to the police, well, what are you going to do to protect her? And they said, well, just stay near her. And so it fell on the responsibility, fell on the shoulders of these volunteer veterans to basically provide free close protection so that I could hold this rally when there's a mad knifeman on the loose. And that was just one another. There are so many examples, and yeah, it's a strange one. It probably would be enough to deter most people from doing it, but I sort of just, I don't know, I just kept going. Because I truly believed in what I was doing and what I was saying. And in hindsight, I think that you know, there are obviously, if we could all go back in time, I'm sure we'd make changes in certain things that we've done. But my outlook and my perception and my beliefs have actually never changed, you know, contrary to common belief, because I know that a lot of people may think that since those days, perhaps they haven't seen me as much. They might think that that's because I've sort of had a change of heart. I've never had a change of heart. If anything, I'm probably more resolute in my beliefs now than I've ever been. But with age, I think as well, you know, I'm 39. I'm hardly going to run through the streets with my cross. And also, like, it doesn't need to be done now. It needed to be done back then, Sean, because people didn't realize that these areas existed. And I remember President Donald Trump said to the media in the US, there are no-go zones in Britain. There are Islamic no-go zones in Britain. And the press in the UK said, Donald Trump's a liar. And I said, is he a liar? I'll tell you what, I'll go and prove that he's not a liar. And I went into Birmingham, Luton, Bradford, Rochdale, Rotherham, and I literally walked through the towns and filmed these people attacking me. It was just
you went into the heart of every area yeah.
Every occupied part of the UK, I went straight into it and said, right, let's film it. And because people recognized me, I didn't even need to say anything. They would attack, and I just used to say to people, just film it. And it became increasingly more difficult.
What was the part that Trump tweeted? Because he retweeted some of your stuff, didn't he?
Yeah.
Was it that? Sorry, or was that something else?
No, that was something else. That was crazy.
Oh, okay.
So I woke up one day and I had a journalist called me and was like, oh, how does it feel to be retweeted by the leader of the free world? And back then, I know, like, Twitter now is it's crazy. Like, it is just a party on there now. But back then, Donald Trump never retweeted anyone, and Twitter wasn't really as big as it is now. And so I was like the guinea pig for this, and I didn't even know it had happened. I was just sitting at my desk working, and I logged on, and it was mayhem. And then I turned the TV on, and this was so bizarre. You know, like the little banner that you've got at the bottom of your screen. Well,
your name was on the banner.
It was madness. This is on the news for nearly 3 days. It was almost like when they don't do it now because terrorist attacks are so common, but when there used to be a terrorist attack in the UK, it would dominate the news for like days. Or if there's like a royal death or something massive, right? Like when Princess Diana died, there was a banner.
It'll be ongoing.
Constant, yeah. This is what it was like, with my face on the screen and a banner, and I had like LBC saying, oh, the woman responsible for destroying the relationship between number 10 and the White House. And it was just madness. It was total madness. And I didn't even have any say in it. Like, the president just decided.
It's mad how they phrase that though towards you, like saying that the woman responsible, because what? Just because he come across your account and decided to reshare some of your stuff.
Yeah.
Like they then like put you out as that. I don't agree with that. I think that's a bit naff. Do you know what I mean?
Of course. And of course what that did was that made me Like that moment really made me enemy number one. The state were gunning for me because
Right.
they were like, this woman's obviously at this point, or even before that, I had the ear of millions of people online. Online, it wasn't like it is now. You know, I got kicked off of social media in 2018. But back in the day, we had the biggest accounts online. I had 3 million followers. It was madness.
Yeah.
And so I think
just you yourself, like 3 million.
oh well, within the party. So I had an account,
Right.
Britain First
Okay,
had an account. And but I had several accounts. I had Facebook, Twitter, and yeah, and so we could reach, if I hit the live button, if I went onto like my Jayda Fransen profile and hit live on Facebook and started doing a live stream, I could reach 150 million people in a week could see these videos. It was just madness. That's why they clamped down on it, because they realized that actually this is open for discourse that they didn't want. They didn't want that kind of chat.
They didn't want too much power being given to the people.
That's right, exactly. And it's funny because Elon Musk actually took the opposite decision and said, no, I want everyone to become a citizen journalist. Whereas Facebook, after they received a lot of pressure, when the government finally put me in jail for a significant amount of time, they contacted.
That?
Yeah, interesting.
39. Was it 39 weeks? Was it 39 weeks?
Yeah, so I got 9 months. They made me serve every single day, and then they made me serve another 9 months on license. So yeah.
Just to clarify, what was that for again? Like, what was the sentence for?
So it was for harassment, religiously aggravated harassment, alarm, and distress, and it related to the gang of immigrants that they gang raped a child in the south of England. In oh gosh, the name of the place has completely left me now, but it was in Kent, in England, at Medway, sorry. And I got a call and some emails from locals in the area, and they said, do you know that a child has been gang raped by these immigrants? It was awful, actually. This kid had gone into
how old was the child?
She was 15, and she'd gone into a takeaway shop and she'd asked for directions to get home, and instead of helping her and giving her directions because she was lost, they took her up to a flat upstairs, and 4 men gang raped her 4 times each. It was horrendous. It was, honestly, you don't even want to know what I heard in that courtroom. It was horrendous. And so the locals had called me because by this point I'd sort of built a reputation as someone.
And these men that carried out these acts upstairs with that 15-year-old girl in the flat, these were the men that you got a sentence over because you went and basically stuck it on them.
So I went to their houses, I went to the shop, I went to the courtroom, and what the police did, the police are very clever. The police, well, I say they're clever, they're not that clever. The police arrested me. I'd been doing this for 3 or 4 days, and I wasn't going to stop. I was on one. I went all their houses, and it was ongoing. So the police, it was like a SWAT team. It was incredible. They ambushed me on this road. They obviously knew I was going to be driving along this road, and there were vans just blocking the entire road. And I was like, okay, that's me away. And I just knew as soon as I saw it, I thought, that's for me. So I was going to keep going because they were out on bail. Why were these men out on bail? They'd gang raped a child. Why are they on bail? One of them, whilst he was out on bail, fled the country. And now luckily they found him in Italy and they brought him back, but he nearly got away with it, right? These are Afghan migrants. And so basically what the police did was when they arrested me, they gave me a charge sheet that said I'd caused harassment, alarm and distress, and it put the names of the 4 rapists. I said, are you joking me? Are you actually telling me that you're arresting me for upsetting 4 gang rapists? So then what they did was they swapped the names out. So instead of like the gang rapists, they put like their wife or their brother. And like, it was farcical, Sean. One of the men, the brothers of the rapist, was in court saying, I thought she was going to kill me. It's a grown man. It's a big old man. I was like, what is he talking about?
So basically, when they sentenced you this for 9 months in prison, right? What was the charge again for the aggravated? What was it?
Religiously aggravated harassment, alarm, and distress.
Aggravated alarm and distress, right? that was all because you went after you literally went and stuck it on 4 gang rapists that gang raped a 15-year-old girl upstairs in the flat when she just went, all she wanted was some directions. She didn't know where she was.
Yeah, I leafleted all their neighbours
and then the police, and because and then the police basically then swapped them out because you said you having a laugh, like you're arresting me because I've upset 4 gang rapists that just raped a 15-year-old.
Yep. Yeah, and just to prove this to you,
it was all over that. That's ridiculous. Like, what?
Of course, it was a stitch up, Sean. They wanted to put me away because
they wanted to make an example of you.
Yeah, they wanted to shut me up. They knew that if they put me in jail, then they could take everything while I was in there, and they did.
How can they switch the names up like that? That's just that then
exactly
brings out the corruption in the police.
I've still got the charge sheet with the original rapist names on it. Right? I couldn't believe it when they gave it to me. I was like, yeah, I still got it. And the mad thing is, all of those men were convicted. They got 14 years each. Right? That's how bad this was. I'm not going to be.
All of them got. They all got 14 years each. Is that it?
They got 14 years each, right? No, but in this country, getting 14 years, most people don't get that. But without being
4 grown men on a 15-year-old, that's
this is what I'm saying, right? I explained this to someone once, and I'm not going to go into detail because it's so upsetting. But the burden of proof in a criminal court is beyond reasonable doubt. So it's very difficult to prove rape anyway, right? Unless you've got physical evidence. But if you have got physical evidence, it's easier. It's not always a given, but it's easier than if you've got none. But it's still difficult because you've got to prove there was no consent, what have you. Proving, and I'm just going to say this, proving that each one of those 4 men raped her 4 times each, if you understand what I'm getting at, means there was a huge amount of evidence. And in fact, it could have meant that they actually raped her more than that. This is a child that was raped at least 16 times. So I actually would have gone to jail standing on my head for that kid. I don't care. I said to them, do you know what? You want to lock me up? Lock me up. I don't care. I'll come out and do the same thing again. I had no regrets. That was a child that should have been protected. And the worst thing was they didn't even think highly enough of the child who had to live knowing that those men were all walking about. They were on bail. They could have raped her again.
This is what I get so. See, this is the main thing that I get so frustrated with, Jayda, right? I absolutely hate the fact that the police can completely disregard rape victims and protect the rapists and be in favour of giving them full protection as opposed to giving justice to the victims.
I know.
And then they made me like understand why they're like that. Like,
no, I don't get it.
Because if that was if that was one of their daughters, do you know what I mean? They wouldn't look to they wouldn't protect the rapist. Then I'm pretty sure that they would go all out, wouldn't they?
Yeah, of course they would if it was one of their own. And this is, people said to me, like, you know, you went to jail basically for a stranger, like for someone else's kid. And I said, yeah, but
a lot of people categorize your sentence and say, oh yeah, she got put in prison because she's a racist and all that lot. But understanding your version of events and the reason behind what, do you know what I mean? What actually happened, where you basically got put in prison because you stuck it on 4 gang rapists that gang raped a 15-year-old girl. I don't see there being any problem with that, because I'm not being funny. Like, that is horrific beyond measure. Do you know what I mean?
It was because I shamed the government, right?
Horrific.
So I shamed the government because I filmed it. So every day I went there, I filmed it and I put it out that night. And I said, I've been to the shop, I've been to their houses. This is this guy, this is that guy. And I showed them, this is where this one's living. They're out on bail. The neighbors were like, yeah, he was here yesterday. So basically, the government had suddenly been embarrassed because they had to answer, well, why is it that these men they're guilty of raping a child, but they're out on bail pending their sentencing? So why is that? Why aren't they locked away? Like, why have you got 4 migrants? And at least 1 or 2 of these migrants had come. In fact, all of them, I believe, had come here illegally. So they're a flight risk. And so the government, instead of them holding their hands up and saying, no, we should be protecting other children in the community and keeping these guys on remand, they bailed them. But then they locked me up. So this is the two-tier justice in the United Kingdom.
And you say when you was in that prison, what prison was that again? Sorry.
So they put me first of all in Bronzefield, which is basic. We don't have categories in women's jails, but it's basically a Cat A. Yeah. So Bronzefield is where they put all of the jihadists and the lifers. And then there are lifers. The second one I went to was Down.
So they wanted to put you in danger by placing you on a wing with jihadists.
Well, the first jail that they put me in, they took me to Bronzefield, where there were jihadists upstairs, that there were people in jail for plotting to kill me, right? There were jihadists upstairs. They put me.
And you had no protection in there?
No, they put me down the block. They put me in segregation. And I said, why am I down the block? This is supposed to be a punishment. This is supposed to be for people that can't behave. And I've only just got here. And they said, we need to interview you.
For your own safety.
Well, they said, we need to interview you and ask you what your intentions are. So I said, all right. So they dragged me out of the cell at like 6 o'clock the next morning. And they processed me at night. They never do that, but they processed me at night to put me in there. They dragged me out at 6 a.m, sat me in this room, lights in my face, camera on, 2 security guys. What are your intentions? I said, what do you mean, what are my intentions? They said, well, do you know who's upstairs? I said, yes, I do. And they said, well, who's up there? I said, well, there's several of them, and they're in for Islamic terrorism, and they know that I'm here. And they said, right, yeah, they do know that you're here because it was on the news and they've seen it. So they said, well, what are you going to do when you get up there? And I said, well, what do you mean? What am I going to do? And they said, well,
nothing.
They said, if we put you up there, what are you going to do? I said to them, I just said to them, look, I'm just going to be really frank with you. If these women try to kill me, I'm going to try and kill them first. And they just looked at me and said, you can't say that. I said, I can say, I'm just being honest with you. If you think that I'm going to let my life be taken quietly and be subdued, you're crazy. I said, bang me up there. I'm not the one. You know, they put me down the hole, punishing me. I wasn't the one that was trying to kill people. So they penalized me. They put me in segregation for 6 weeks. And when I say segregation, listen, I'm not talking about segregation that we've seen some of these other right-wing people get, and they've got a laptop and a TV and a phone and they're going to the gym. And no, I was in a cell. I wasn't allowed out of that cell. I didn't go to the gym. They wouldn't let me go to church. They wouldn't let me go to the library. I could not leave that cell. The only time they would bring me out is to put me in a shower room when everybody else was locked away. They treated me like Bronson. It was absurd. And they kept me in there like that. No exercise, nothing. No outdoors, no nothing. No seeing people, nothing for 6 weeks. And I mean, 6 weeks doesn't really sound like a long time when you say it like that.
How did you cope with that mentally, being in that segregation for a time? Is it hard to deal with that?
You don't realise until you come out.
Being left alone to your faults. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I spent 6 weeks with Jesus. Like I just immersed myself. I read loads of books. I read the Bible, and I just kind of processed what had gone on, because I'd had a really, really, really crazy few years up until that point. And when I was in that cell, they shut down all my social media. So I just was processing everything that was going on at that time. But you don't actually realize the effect that no contact with someone has until you're pulled out. So I remember they pulled me out and they put me in this meeting, and there's like the governor and all these other people, everyone's sitting around this table, and they're like, okay, we need to assess you because you've been in there for however long, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever. We need to assess you.
Is that like a psych evaluation, is it?
No, it wasn't even, well, I suppose there probably were psych team there, but there was like the governor, and there's like a board of people, like all these people are sitting at this table, and you're just sitting there, and they're like, how do you feel? And I was thinking, how do I feel? I said, I think I'm all right, but like I haven't seen people in 6 weeks. So there's all these people sitting in front of me, and I'm like, I haven't. It was weird. It was so strange. And I always give the example, like, humans institutionalize really quickly. That's why if you ever watch a program, I don't watch them now, but back in the day when it first came out, if anyone ever watched like Big Brother, you'll know, or these like the celebrity jungle show, you'll see that it takes like a day, and all of a sudden these people are talking to each other like they've known each other for years, because humans institutionalize very quickly. And so within 6 weeks, certainly, I had become completely institutionalized into this solitary confinement. No contact, no outside world, no outside, no gym, no church, no nothing. And I tried to go to church. They said, nope, you're not allowed out. And so anyway, the long and short of it is I kicked up a bit of fuss about the food that they were giving me in there, because they were giving me halal food. And and I said, like, I'm not eating halal food. And I wrote a letter to the governor from the cell and said, I'm not eating this. I'm a Christian. The Bible says that I'm not allowed to eat food that's been offered up to false idols. I'm not eating halal. You should provide an alternative for Christians. This is a Christian country. And they spun me out of the jail like that. And they put me into another one, into a Cat C prison, which they then put me on a wing. So I wasn't in solitary confinement. But
in retrospect, kicking up a fuss and giving that letter was basically your salvation out of that nick.
Yeah. Out of that cell.
Cat C.
Exactly. Yeah. And there were lifers. So they kept me in the second jail. They kept me on the induction wing, because they said, we can't put you on a wing in case you radicalize people. And so they said, we'll keep you on the induction wing, where there were other people that had murdered and stuff. And they put me on the same category as that. But it turned out, this was the most bizarre twist of fate. I got to the second jail, and shortly after I got there, a trans man came to that jail and had been paid by jihadists in the first jail to kill me. And that was probably one of the most bizarre experiences of my life, because he walked into my cell.
No.
Yeah. And nothing can prepare you for that. Nothing. And I knew.
Did he attempt it? Did he attempt it?
No, it was just the whole thing.
When did you sort of realise, like, he was like you, like
straight away?
He was a bit. This put, obviously, tell it's a man. He's a bit sus. What do you know what I mean? What's going on?
Straight away, it was so strange.
Dropped him straight away when he came in.
I was sitting in my cell eating, right, and I looked up, and this big black guy was stood there, covered in tattoos, and I just looked up and I thought that. And now I had been told already, because some of the screws, people were talking, I had been told already they put a hit out on you in the first jail. But I didn't know who was supposed to be trying to do this, and they couldn't get to me because I was down the block. So no one could kill me, right? Because I'm down the block. So I'm not getting out. So the girls upstairs that had ordered it, they've ordered it and said, get to her however you can. But even if this guy had gone down to segregation, the screws weren't letting me have any opportunity to get past anyone. So he wouldn't have been able to do it. I don't even know how it happened that he got transferred to the second jail. For me, it feels like a stitch up. It feels like a state stitch up, because they knew that this was going on. And he turned up at the second jail, and he walked into my cell, and immediately I sat there. It was just the most bizarre feeling. And I thought, this is the man that's been ordered to kill me. And he said, you know,
the trans was a black man.
Yeah.
Christ.
Yeah. And who was in for sexual assault on women. And he said to me, do you know who I am? And I said, yeah, I think I do. And he said, do you know what I've been told to do? And I said, yeah, I think I do. And he said, this is so strange. I'm not going to go into too much, because I don't know whether this person's in or out or what. But the long and short of it is, this person had got access to a device and looked me up online and had made his mind up they wasn't going to kill me by the time we got to the second jail. And so I spent my time in the second jail talking to this person about Jesus, because he was quite a troubled character. Was in for at the time, I didn't realize was in for not it wasn't sexual. I think it was like attempted kidnap or something like that, something along those lines. But I didn't know this. I didn't, because they don't tell you. People don't show you their depths. They don't. I did. Everyone knew what I was in for because it was all over the news.
Yeah.
But most people, they're not going to show you their depths, so they don't tell you what they're in for. So he'd sort of said, "Oh, I had this stuff, and it looked like I was going to kidnap this girl, but I wasn't going to." And I was like, "Okay." But anyway, the long and short of it is, it didn't kill me. I'm here, and I'm talking to this guy and saying, "Look, you need to," because at one point he thought he was a Muslim, then he thought he was a Sikh, and he was just lost, just someone that was lost, troubled, and yeah, I ended up in that jail. I ended up sitting and talking to women who had really difficult life experiences and trying to help people and talking to people about my Christian faith and some of the circumstances that I'd been through, just trying to help people really, because this place was just full of vulnerable women, and the state, they don't help prisoners. I'm not saying that everyone deserves helping, right? There were nonces in the jail that I said to the screws, if they don't get spun out of this wing, it's all going to kick off. Like, a nonce walked into my cell once, and that didn't happen again. So these are female pedophiles. So obviously some of them don't deserve any help, and I wouldn't try and help them because there's some things I just can't deal with. Like, I just go away. If you've touched a kid, I'm not going to deal with that ever. But there were women in that were like in their 70s and they were shoplifting. And they were just serial shoplifters, and they were doing it because they wanted to be in jail, because in jail they felt safe and they were getting fed. And it was sad, Sean. It was so sad to see. It was a real...
Yeah, I've heard of stuff like that. Like, some people, like, they just can't, because they've been in and out of Nick so many, like so much in their lives, they get used to just that setting of just being in prison where they know they haven't got to worry about bills. They get their head down every night. They're going to get fed every night. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
There were women that were crying. There were women that would cry. I remember, I'll never forget this one woman. I think she was maybe in her 60s, and she was crying on the day that she was being released because she didn't want to leave, because she didn't know how to cope in the outside world. And I thought, and she was a white English woman, and she was only in for like shoplifting, petty stuff. I don't like shoplifting, by the way. I really hate theft. I'd cut people's hands off. I'd go full Sharia and cut the hands off. But this was obviously a woman that was deeply troubled and didn't have any sort of life skills, that couldn't cope. And she's crying because she's getting out. Most people would want to tunnel their way out of there. She didn't want to leave because she couldn't survive. So this just demonstrated to me some of the epic failings in this country, because there are too many people in the jails. The jails are really full up with jihadists and people that shouldn't even be here. So it was a real learning experience anyway. But God doesn't make mistakes. I don't regret it. I actually don't regret it. I think it was an experience in my life that needed to happen at that time for me to take the next steps.
Yeah. Oh, that's unbelievable. So that explains so much to me in regards to the prison sentence and as to why. Do you know what I mean? I mean, that's literally just uncovered the real truth behind all of it, which is do you know what I mean? Which is very, like, that's very good to know, like, about that, because a lot of people seem to be roped up into a false pretense that and they just want to be like, oh yeah, because she's black, whatever. But then, if like only they would know the actual story behind and who those people were for gang rapists, men that you stuck on, that you stuck it on them, to a 15-year-old girl, I'm pretty sure their tune would then change.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So Jesus. So one thing the media still gets completely wrong about that time, what would you say?
One thing the media gets wrong about...
Back when you was involved with Britain First, just what's the main thing that the media would always get wrong within regards to your patrols, your protests and stuff like that? Because let's face it, we're in a day and age now where the right wing is coming up now, because the mainstream media is pretty much dying out now, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, they don't control the narrative anymore, do they? That's the thing. So back then, the media was just every week headline racist this, bigot that, fascist this.
It's always doom scrolling, I find. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it is.
You know when you watch the news, right? When I used to watch the news anyway, right? That literally the BBC, you got to agree with me, innit? When it's just constantly, all they ever do is just talk about negative, bad news all the time. It's like, but they do it in such a monotone voice as well. It's like, and it would literally wind me up because it literally be like, today a 12-year-old got stabbed. The parents have been informed. Like, no expression, no, like, just all like doom, gloom, all that lot. But they'd only give that kid about 3 seconds as an alert. But then the next thing, they jump the next breath, they'd be like going, you know, Catherine Zeta-Jones, you know, or Holly Willoughby has just got married. And they talk about all that chirpy and chirpy for an hour, as if that holds more relevance over a kid who's just had his life taken from him. And that used to really, really wind me up, because I feel like, how can you prioritize something stupid like that and get like you know, put it in all seriousness? How can you put something like a celebrity's marriage, you know, give them all airtime and all that, like, over a young life that's just been taken on the streets? And that used to wind me up, and it used to sicken me, because I just thought, well, that's not relevant. No one cares about their wedding. Like, I'm more concerned about the kid who's just had his life taken from him.
That's the ones that you hear about. There's so many people getting stabbed.
I think that's the way they conduct themselves with that, and they still do it to this day, unfortunately.
I don't watch it. I don't watch any of them.
Yeah, no, I don't either. I don't watch it either. But it's just.
But no, I think back then the one of the main misconceptions was just the buzzword at the time was racist, and so what they did was they portrayed me as someone that was very hateful, and they made it so basically that their line was, she's doing this because she's hateful, which actually I do understand that sometimes if you watch those videos of me from like 10-15 years ago, it might seem like I'm hateful. I mean, I don't know, but it might seem like it because I'm angry some of the time, because you got to remember, this wasn't a walk in the park. No one else was doing this. I've never seen anyone do it since either. Has anyone ever
said to you from like the videos from back in the day of yourself when you've been out on the patrols and stuff, that like, I don't know, for instance, like, yeah, she looks really Larry, that girl, pretty Larry.
Like, yeah, of course, yeah, because like I'm chasing terrorists down the street, like I'm confronting grooming, like rapists. I'm outside politicians' houses. So, like the head of the social services in Rotherham, who covered up the grooming scandal, I went to her house. I stood outside police stations. I went into the council buildings. I went into the Tories' offices. I went to Anjem Chowdhury's house 3 times. They had to keep moving him because I kept turning up and knocking on his door. I went to Abu Izzadeen's house. I went to Mikhail Ibrahim's house. I chased convicted terrorists down the street. There was even an occasion, I mean, probably not my finest hour, but I was confronting Anjem Chowdhury and all of those guys that were holding ISIS flags on the street. I don't know how many people remember this, but like 15 years ago, this was happening every weekend. They're standing on the street holding ISIS flags, and they had a massive Quran that they were holding up. And I grabbed this Quran and I literally launched it at Anjem Chowdhury's head, and I got arrested for that, to be fair. And you know, like I'm not a violent person, but I did think, if I'm
extremist, he's an extremist that brainwashes and radicalizes people, isn't he? Anjem Chowdhury.
Anjem Chowdhury's the one that radicalized the killers of Lee Rigby.
He radicalized what's his name? Abalaji, that killed
Michael Adebolajo. Yeah,
Michael Adebolajo, that's it. He radicalized him, and then he went on to mow down Lee Rigby in a van. I'm pretty sure it was a van. Get out, and then he just hacked him up.
Yeah,
and I'll never get over that day when I see the news on that. That was absolutely horrific that could even take place.
That was a pivotal moment for me. That was a really defining moment.
I'll tell you something right about that. The barracks that Lee Rigby was stationed at, the PWR barracks down in Woolwich, I was stationed on his camp. Like, when I was on an ERE posting when I was in my regiment, and they put me on an ERE posting down in Woolwich, and they put me on the PWR camp. And I thought to myself, and looking back at it, I just think, Jesus Christ, literally, you come out the camp gates, turn right, turn right again, and literally just cut the footsteps, and that's where he literally got mowed down and literally just got hacked up.
Yeah.
I just think,
and they knew. They said, like, we're doing this because they quoted the Quran. They quoted the Quran. They said that they were doing it because of.
Sorry, go on.
No, but they gave the reasons. They cited Islam as one of the reasons, and they said that it was due to the British forces meddling in their lands. And so this was quite a pivotal moment for the whole country, really, I think, because up until then, we had actually been quite sheltered as to what Islam was all about. And we'd also been quite sheltered as to the effect that our country's meddling was having on the geopolitical landscape. So, for example, like, we'd had Tony Blair lied about weapons of mass destruction. We'd had our government collude with the American government to send our troops, our boys, into Middle Eastern countries, destabilize the region. Yeah, exactly. Right. And then these terrorists, these guys are then being welcomed into the country, and then they're committing terrorist attacks against our boys because they're angry at our government. But it wasn't Lee Rigby's fault. It wasn't your, people that sign up to serve. It is not their fault. And, like, to be quite honest, these days, and I never ever thought I would be in a position I'd say this, because I've been working with veterans for years and I have so much respect for people that have served. But these days, I've got 9 godchildren, and if any of them said to me, I'm thinking of joining, I'd say, don't do it, because they only want to send you out to Ukraine, or they want you to die on the front line for a NATO's proxy wars, and so
the army isn't the army anymore.
No, exactly. Well, yeah, you've seen the campaigns, right, where they're saying about
it's all pink and fluffy. I remember back in the day, 2009. I mean, I put this up the other day. I put up an old video from memory lane. We was in the blocks, right? Just me and all the lads, and we stuck on some boxing gloves, and we literally just smashed the life out of each other. And this was for bants, and this was just to have a laugh.
Good. That's how men behave. That's what men do.
That's what I'm saying, and that's what it was all about. It was all having a laugh, right? And but then fast forward to like 2018. And then, but then fast forward from 2009 to 2018 to when the British Army then decided to start pumping out adverts where you see, soldiers out on a patrol, and then they bring their patrol to a halt, so Abdul can get his prayer mat out and decides he needs to go and pray. When in actual fact, what type of message is that sending? Because to me, it's nonsensical, because you're then endangering, the lives of your men. Do you know what I mean? Because you've had an epiphany that you want to, like, just stop in the middle of nowhere, allow the insurgents, allow the Taliban to reload their weapon systems, to then slot you because you want to sit and get on your knees.
Yeah, because Mohammed wants to
pray. My personal
opinion.
I didn't understand that message. I never will understand that message. But then the only analysis I can give on that advert is that is when the army become full on woke.
Yeah. I remember a couple of years ago, the army had a poster campaign, and they said they wanted snowflakes to join. They said, snowflakes, we need your compassion. Join the army. Snowflakes. Yeah. This is what they're not real men, hard men that love your country, men that are willing to fight and die and bleed and suffer. No, we want snowflakes to defend the country. Yeah. Strange.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, this is what I'm saying about when I was saying to you earlier, I can't ever agree, or I just can't wrap my head around all this woke crap. Like, I just want it to just all get scrunched up and tossed in the bin, mate, and just for it to just go back to how normal living used to be, where everyone was privy to common sense, and that was the only way forward, because common sense is the way forward. We're not going backwards, we are going forwards. We're not idiots. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
But this is another reason. This is why they want to demasculinize men. They want to, because I think if they can demasculinize the younger generation, then they know that the younger generation aren't, if they're not going to stand up and stand up against them and kick off or anything, because the men are too feminine, because they've brainwashed them too much. Nah, I don't agree with that. Not men should be real men, and that's the be and end of it. Do you know what I'm saying?
I agree. And if we had more real men, the country wouldn't be in the state that it's in. But unfortunately, there are plenty of real men, because I work with a lot of them and I've campaigned with a lot of them and protested with a lot of them over the years. But they are the most demonized people in the country. You know, heterosexual, so like basically straight white men are demonized, especially Christian men are demonized more than anyone else in the country. Men that think they should have control and be in charge of their country, they're demonized more than anybody else in the country. They want men to be these effeminate, compliant shills. And so anyone who raises their head above the parapet, and I'm sure that you've had your fair amount of stick from the left or what have you, because they don't want people like you. They don't want veterans.
I've been called like, loads of stuff. Nazi, racist, fake create. You weren't really in the army. Yeah, I was. Do your own work, mate. Why am I going to lie about that? You not see the photos that I put up sometimes. Like sometimes I've randomly uploaded photos to my ex, and that. Do you know what I mean? Back when I was in regiment and that. Back when we had green kit, because they phased green kit out and moved it to MTP. Do you know what I mean? Where you got to have your dress regs would be your MTP, the American, where we look a little bit more like the Americans. Yeah. Where I don't like it because it's a bit scruffy, and you leave your top, you leave your shirt untucked and hanging out.
Really.
I didn't really, it weren't really my cup of tea, that one. I preferred old school. I liked it when it was green kit, where, do you know what I mean? You got your creases in, and do you know what I mean? Your shirt was tucked in, right, and everything was nice and neat. But yeah, that's just another story. But but yeah, no. But so yeah, back to you. I want to talk about something else, right? This is another major thing that I think needs to be spoken about, because I just want to know, one of the things that's followed you for years, Jayda, is this story that you accepted a 20 grand payment from Hope Not Hate. Like, what's all that about? What was that about?
It was a lie, and it was a vicious lie that was told. This lie was created by Paul Golding and Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson put a documentary out the first thing Tommy did when he got let back onto Twitter was he published this documentary in which he alluded to the fact that I'd taken money from Hope Not Hate, who are the utter dregs of society. Like, we'll get onto that in a minute, but he put that documentary out and then he blocked me so that I had no right of response, because he knows it's a lie, right? So basically, when I got out of prison, I let Britain First know I'm not coming back. And the reason I did that is because my time during my entire time in Britain First, save for maybe the first 4 months, this didn't happen, but after that, I was subjected to physical abuse, violence from Paul Golding. Paul Golding is a bully, is a violent man, and he's got a track record of beating up women. Not just me, but the mother of his child. He's got a track record. Right? This is in the public domain because he's admitted to this. But Tommy Robinson and Paul never used to get on. So this wasn't even something that I think Tommy was aware of. I went to prison. When I got out, I let Britain First know I'm not coming back. To be quite honest with you, Sean, and I'll say this now, I genuinely felt this. They put me down the block in a jail cell, and they slammed a metal door, and it was the tiniest cell you can imagine, with nothing in there apart from a toilet, because you're not allowed anything in segregation. And I laid on the bed and I thought, I am free from that man. Right? That's how bad things were. And so when I got out, I said, I'm leaving. I said, and I think we should just do this amicably. There's no need to fall out. They said, we don't want you to go, because basically he had given orders to his security team. She can't leave because she's the one that brings the money in, because she goes out and does all the crazy stuff. And then we put out an appeal and we bring in money because she's willing to go and chase Anjem Chowdhury and go to his house. And I said, look, I'm not your cash cow. I'm going. I've been away for 9 months. I've gathered my thoughts, and I'm not living like this anymore. Right. So when I came out of jail, actually, I was a lot stronger than before when I went in. Anyway, so that was that. And basically I was boxed into this corner where they wouldn't let me leave. And I was told by members of Britain First, he is not going to let you leave. You're too valuable to the movement, and come what may. They were supposed to help me set up so that I could go my separate ways, and they just weren't. So anyway, I eventually went to an office in Northern Ireland where there's a guy called Jim Dowson that actually set up the Britain First movement originally with Golding, but left back in like 2011 or 2013, something like that. And he was working in Northern Ireland with a group called the Knights Templar. And I went to their office and said, I need help. Like, I need to get away from this man. When I was in jail, I got sued. The party got sued by the Halal Food Authority. And Golding said, the party hasn't got any money. Take her house. And the first High Court judge, the first trans High Court judge in London, in England, that we'd ever had, gave the first transsexual High Court judge that we have had in the UK, gave my house to the Muslims in the Halal Food Authority because Golding said, we've got no money, take her house. I came out, my house in London was gone. That Britain First had sold my car.
Was this sorry. This house of yours, was that your own house that you like? Do you know what I mean? Like you grafted.
I bought that when I worked at that law firm.
Was you still paying them? Did you still paying the mortgage off, or was it paid? Or
no. I still had a bit of a mortgage on it, but not a lot. And I bought that house when I worked at a law firm, right? So it's nothing to do with politics. Politics never paid for that house. That house was that I bought that house when I worked at that law firm years and years ago, before I was involved in politics. So I lost my house, my car was gone, my bank accounts had all been used, my credit cards had all been used while I was in jail by Paul and other people in Britain First. And basically the party, the entire Britain First movement, Paul and other people that were involved, had basically knocked me for £250,000. I came out, I had nothing, not a thing, nothing to my name, no car, no nothing. And these people are then saying, you want to leave, you can't leave. So I went to this group, the Knights Templar, and I said to them, I need help. I need to get away from this man. Even when I got out of jail, this man physically attacked me. So this is after years of putting up with this. I went to Belfast and it happened again. I said, I need help. I need to get away. So I went to the Knights Templar and they said, don't worry, come in. They've got a priory in Northern Ireland. They said, come in. And they brought me in and they said, we will help you get on your feet. What do you need? You need money to clear some arrears on all these credit cards that they'd run up while I was in jail. You need to you need to pay for somewhere to live. And you need to just get yourself back sorted. You need to if you're going to work, you need a laptop. And they said, what we'll do is we'll set you up a website so you can do your own thing. Like you can do your activist stuff and your political stuff and you can just rebuild your life because everything's gone. Like everything's gone. And not, you're coming out. It's like, where do I even go? So anyway, they set up a fundraiser for me and they raised 20 grand, right? Now that was in dollars. So $20,000 is about £17,000, right? But they raised $20,000. And
sorry, just quickly. So the Knights Templar, who you'd asked to help you, they said that they'd done a fundraiser for you to try and help you get back on your feet when obviously you'd realised everything was gone, and they raised $20,000 for you.
Yeah. So basically they said, look, we'll raise this money so you can clear the credit cards and all the stuff. Because at this point, right, I'm like, I've come out, all my credit cards have been used while I was in jail. So there's like 10 grand on one of these credit cards that needs to be paid. And I haven't used it. So I did write to the bank and say, like, I didn't use this. I was inside. They actually sent me a letter with Paul Golding's email address on it and said, this is who's used the card. Anyway, so the long and short of it is they did a fundraiser. I've still got those emails for that fundraiser and the name of every single person that donated money, right? Because I thanked all of those people. A lot of them were in America because they're quite big in America. So anyway, they blessed them. They raised this money. They cleared a load of the debt. And then whatever was left, they said, we'll use this. We'll get you set up on a website, get a laptop for you, get your phone sorted, and you just got to rebuild your life. And of course, it's difficult because there's no money coming in straight away. So I had to take work where I could and what have you. Anyway, that was that. I just got out of jail. The BBC contacted me during this time and said, now this, I have to just say this quickly. This isn't unusual, by the way, right? When I was in Britain First, I was the press officer, which means in my years, I've probably given hundreds of interviews to the BBC, Channel 4, ITV, Sky, CNN, Fox News, RT, everyone, you name it, right? And so, and in fact, the BBC have done 3 documentaries on me. One all about my life. These are all like negative because they hate me, right? But one was all about my life and how I'm a terrible racist. But I was really young. I was only in my 20s. So they were like, look at this 20-year-old. She's racist. And she's leading the Britain First movement. And she's in her late 20s. And, you know, just all negative rubbish. And then there was another one that they did about my involvement in the grooming gangs. And Professor Green was in that one. And they were all saying like, oh, she's going into these Muslim areas. And Professor Green came and he was like, you're just a racist. And, you know, just the usual BBC rubbish. And then the third one, they said to me, so they called me and said, we would like to interview you because we're doing a piece on Britain First. And this was the BBC in Northern Ireland. And I said, look, I've actually left Britain First, but the public doesn't actually really know this yet because I haven't got any way of telling people this. But I said, but I've left Britain First. I said, so just ring Paul. And again, like, this isn't unusual. Paul has given, not as many as me because I was the press officer, but Paul used to give interviews. You'll have seen them. Like when we were standing in elections, the BBC would come up and say, why are you standing this election? And we would say, well, because we're opposing the mega mosque. You know, so this is not unusual for political people to give interviews, right? Yeah. But the BBC said to me, will you do it? And I said, no. I said, I'm out. I'm not in Britain First. So they said, all right, fair enough, we'll ring Paul. So they called Paul and then they called me back and they said, well, we know that you've left, but we're going to run a story about some of the finances in Britain First because we've realised that there's finances coming in and out of the party and it doesn't add up, like hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pounds, and it's not been accounted for. And I said to them, well, I didn't have any access to the accounts, right? I wasn't allowed that. That was Paul. So I said, but if you want an interview, like I'll give you an interview. And they also said, we are also going to cover the work that you did in Northern Ireland, because in Northern Ireland, I was standing outside the mosque saying, this is a den of iniquity. So they said, we are going to talk about you in this program. So we want to give you a right of response. So I said, all right, fine, I'll do an interview. Like, if you're going to sit and call me a racist, they're kind of my favorite interviews because I don't mind those interviews because I'm firm in my beliefs. I'm like, yeah, come at me. Yeah. So I sat down and they were saying, you know, Britain First, they've got all this money coming in. And I said to them, look, I don't have access to the account, so I can't answer any of those questions. But they said that, was there a shop, a Britain First shop? Because there was, none of the money had been declared. And I was like, well, everybody knows there's a shop. Like, why are you asking me this? You know there's a shop. Go to them and ask them where the money is. It's not my money. So then they said to me, you're a racist. You know, you went to these mosques and you're just a racist. And I was like, oh, usual BBC. And I was like, whatever, I don't, like, call me what you like. Do you know what I mean? I said, and they said, well, do you regret calling that mosque a den of iniquity? And I said, no, I don't. I don't regret it at all.
What was that? A den of what?
A den of iniquity. So it's like a biblical term. Basically, it's a bad place. Like those mosques are bad places. Inside there are.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, I weren't privy to what it meant. So that's why.
No, it's fine. So they were like angry that I'd said that. So this is a very standard BBC interview that I would have had throughout my time in Britain First, where they're basically just saying you're a horrible racist, and I was just like, whatever. So anyway, that was that. Gave the interview, left, fine. Thought that's the end of that. I've left Britain First now. It's all behind me. I've gone. Yeah. I get a call maybe 2 weeks later from the BBC, and they said, we need to speak to you. And I was like, look, I'm not down for this. I got doorstepped, right? The BBC said,
what's that mean?
We have spoke. So basically, they sprung a visit on me, as well as contacting me on the phone.
They just turn up randomly.
Yeah, they turn up where they know you're going to be, and they said. Yeah. But actually, this conversation was on the phone, and they said to me, we've interviewed over a dozen members of Britain First, people that have left, and over a dozen people have said that they have witnessed Paul Golding violently attack you. Is this true? And I said, you've had your interview. I don't have anything else to say. And they said, well, you might want to have your say on this, because we've got something that evidences this, and we're going to run it in this interview. Whether you give a response or not, we're going to run with this. Now, I didn't know what this was. So I said, okay. So they said, so anyway, I said, all right, fine. I'll give you, they said, we think you should come back for another interview. So I said, all right, fine. I sat in this room. They put a laptop in front of me. They played me a 45-minute recording from my house on a phone line that was open from, I'd called someone from when I lived in England, and I was living with Paul, and Paul had just attacked me, chased me through the house, and I'd locked myself in the garden because he was threatening to kill me, and he was being restrained by his own mother. And this, I called someone when I was in my garden screaming for help, and the phone line was open. And this recording was in front of me, being played to me on camera by the BBC. And I sound like Peggy Mitchell. I'm screaming, I'm running through the house, I'm crying my eyes out. Yeah. I've just had a bottle thrown at me. I've been chased into the garden. Like I thought I was going to be killed in my own home. And they played it to me and they said, what have you got to say about that?
Mm.
And honestly, it was probably the most embarrassing moment of my life, because the last thing that you want as a woman who has gone through that is for the entire world to hear you crying your eyes out and screaming, running through your house, right? I never wanted that to happen. And I also felt abject shame that over the years I'd worked with all these grooming gang victims and victims of violent abuse by like these immigrant men. And here I was, having gone through much of the same thing and never spoken out about it. And I felt just horrific. I mean, if anyone who's seen the interview will see, I was about to burst into tears. Like, and I don't get like that, right? I've given interviews. I can give interviews. I don't care if there's a communist sitting opposite me calling me a racist. I don't care. Come at me, right? But you could have knocked me over with a feather. I was so embarrassed. I was so upset. And I hated the BBC for doing it to me, right? Because I felt ambushed. But they said, why didn't you do anything? Why didn't you stop this? And I said, well, because for years I was trying to protect the movement. I thought that if I just persevere, then this will stop. But if I had gone to the police, can you imagine the newspapers? They'd have had a field day, right? Can you imagine? Yeah. So anyway, and I had been made to feel like I couldn't leave. Every time I tried to leave, I was told, you're a marked woman. So go on, if you leave this house, the Muslims are going to get you. You're never going to get another job. You've been in the newspapers every day for the last few years. You know, your houses have been attacked. You've been attacked. If you walk out that door, you're on your own and you're a dead woman. And, you know, the police call it coercive control. And there's an open police investigation even now. So, you know, but it's amazing how even someone who is considered very strong, and I would consider my character strong, can allow themselves to just be so manipulated and just downtrodden and berated. And, you know, I said this earlier on you asked me stuff earlier and I kind of alluded to this, but I wasn't going to bring it up. But now you've asked about the Hope Not Hate stuff. That was the biggest thing for me to deal with throughout my whole time in activism. I could cope with the Muslims attacking me and the lefties attacking my house. I could cope with that. What the worst thing for me was when I closed my door and went home at night, I was being subjected to violence, and other men had witnessed this and were allowing it to happen because it was the leader of the right wing. And so anyway, the BBC released this documentary and all of this stuff came out. And in response to that, Tommy Robinson put basically a hit piece out and said that the 20 grand that I'd been given was, he didn't say, actually, if anybody sees the documentary, Tommy, because he's smart, has never said that I got the money from Hope Not Hate, because he knows I didn't, right? Everybody knows that I didn't. But the way he worded it, he said, Jayda came out of jail and suddenly she gets given 20 grand and she does this documentary. And he's never said, because he knows if he says it, I can sue him personally, right? If he said Jayda Fransen took £20,000 from Hope Not Hate, I can take him to court and sue him personally. He knows that. So he's never said it. What he said was, there's a guy called Johnny Adair called Jim Dowson in the Knights Templar and said, I'm going to give Jayda some money to help her get back on her feet. And Jim Dowson said, don't worry, Johnny, she's just said 20 grand. I just said 20 grand from his organization, not from Hope Not Hate. Hope Not Hate are communist scum who ruin people's lives, and they had put my home address online like 5 years earlier. I'd rather die in a ditch than speak to those people. They're worse than the Muslims and any of the immigrants in this country. They are the dregs of society, right? So the notion that I would even take a penny or sit down with these people is sickening to me. And if I found out that someone else had done that, I'd never deal with them, right? So I got why people were angry. They saw this documentary that Tommy had put out, and they were angry. But I was like, this isn't true. This is not what happened. He knows that. He knows that money didn't come from Hope Not Hate. He didn't even say it had, but he alluded to it. But of course, he's blocked me. So then I've got no right of response. I can't defend myself. And then from then, I had such extreme abuse and threats from people that follow Tommy and Paul that this is now, I'm outside of jail now. This is the other side of jail. Once again, the police contacted me and said, there is a risk to your life because of that man's documentary that they've just put out, that hit piece. And they said, we know this is a lie, right? We know this is a lie. Like, we can see what's going on here because there's an open police investigation against Paul Golding for assault, battery, attempted rape, sexual assault, coercive control. So they knew that this was a lie, but they said, we can't do anything to stop this. The lie is out there. Tommy's got it pinned on his account. And they said, we need to put security measures on your home again in case you are attacked by someone who follows Tommy Robinson, because he's now told the world that you've basically like turned left wing, and which was probably the worst thing that could possibly happen. I gave up my entire life for right-wing activism, and I had people that follow Tommy calling me, men threatening to kill me, men that would have come to my rallies like a few years before were messaging me and calling me hideous names, women messaging me, calling me disgusting names and saying you're a traitor. And I was like, now, when you break this down, I not only had I suffered 5 years of violence and attacks and sexual attacks, I'm now in a position where I'm being demonized for that. And the people that have done it are like covering it up. And so it's probably the worst thing that happened throughout the whole of activism, because it made me see a side to these people that will blindly follow people like Tommy, and they weren't paying attention to the fact that he never actually said, I got this money from Hope Not Hate, because he knows I didn't. But they don't care about the truth. They just want the drama. They just want the divisiveness. And so, yeah, that basically, that all happened. And then I took Gold into court. And it's been proven in court that this was all a lie. It's been proven in court. Paul was ordered to pay me damages for money that he owed me because they'd taken money when I was in jail, and for assault and trespass of a person, they call it. So this was reported in the news, but of course, the news actually doesn't have as much traction these days as someone like Tommy Robinson. So Tommy Robinson's using his massive following to tell everyone this woman's done this, this, and this. And actually, the truth is, I went to court and that was all proven to be a lie. But what do you do? I've never been able, he's never let me respond because he won't let me, because he knows that I can prove that it's a lie. So look, for years, I've had people come at me with this, and I understand if people believed it, I understand why they would be angry. But it is a disgusting lie. And like I would go to my grave defending myself on this, because I know, on the Bible, like as a Christian, there's not a chance that this ever would have happened. It didn't happen.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know you say like, you've just in light of everything, death threats, all this stuff and that. Would you say that you come across as a confrontational person, like physically confrontational, as in, would you ever get physical with like another woman, or are you like, would you have a fight with anyone?
I've never.
Because obviously when people have come at you, like you say, right, Have you ever hit people back? Are you that type of person that would like have a row? Like, do you know what I mean? Or
I'll have a row. Like, obviously,
or you just literally like you've just got a lot of bottle, and you just got, like, I mean, you'll just stand by your beliefs where you just back everything up with your mouth.
Yeah, so like people will have seen over the years, I would stand in the street and I'd have like Muslim men in front of me screaming at me, and I would say to them,
so many videos,
you're worshipping a false prophet, right? So everyone's seen all of that, but I don't think that women should be confronted, like violent or physical. I don't agree with it at all, right? So
no, I don't think that. I think women should be protected.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was brought up like that, right? So let alone a man hurting a woman, but even a woman, like people have probably seen that video of me in Bury Park, and there's a white Muslim convert, and she's got like a hijab thing on, and she's really screaming at me. She's right in my face screaming at me. She's calling me a slapper because I'm not wearing a hijab, and she's screaming and she's coming at me. And I'm holding this cross, and I just sort of moved back a bit because I thought she's gonna swing for me. But never in any of my years of activism, or even before that, like, just, I don't think women should fight, but never have I had a physical confrontation with any of these people. Now, they have attacked me, and like that is quite scary. But the last thing that I'm gonna do, like, some of these were men. Well, you're going to try and fight a man? Like, it's ridiculous. And even the women, if I thought that a woman was going to attack me, I guess I'd just remove myself. But I don't agree. I don't like women fighting. I don't, it's not what women should be doing. I mean, if you boil it down, really, not at all. And to a certain extent, like now, I'm probably more traditional in my views now as a more mature Christian woman. I actually don't think that women should be on the front line of political activism either. When I think about the stuff that I was doing back then, it's crazy to me to think that I was this woman in her 20s, and I was literally standing in front of terrorists and confronting them and saying, you don't belong here. Take your ISIS flags and get out of this country, and you radicalize the killers of Lee Rigby. And I'm confronting men that have literally gone to jail for terrorism. And that really wasn't a woman's place to do it, but there wasn't anyone else that was doing it. And so I don't believe that God makes mistakes. I think that I was in the position I was meant to be in. And I do think that the activism that I did back then helped show the world what was happening to the UK. We were suffering at the hands of multiculturalism and mass immigration and Islamification. And so I don't regret any of it, but some of the circumstances were really awful, like really not nice.
So the lowest point of your life, would you say that the lowest point of your life within regards to all of this, would you say that was around that time where all this stuff happened, you know what I mean, where everything got taken, and people obviously, turned on you and stuff, and like, do you know what I mean? I'd imagine that would be like really hard for you to deal with, isn't it?
Yeah, so when we used to like organize rallies, and there'd be hundreds, sometimes thousands of people that would turn out for these different rallies in different cities. And I had done this for years and years and years. And I'd met thousands and thousands of people over the years. And some of these people had been to all of my rallies, and we'd take pictures together at the rallies, and they'd be really supportive and really nice. And I'd always tried to spend time with people. And because, I think a lot of these right-wing talking heads, they're a bit egotistical, and they're a bit like, oh, I'm not talking to you. I was like, come on, I want to talk to everyone that's here. And so I think the low point for me was when the police called me and said, we now need to put protective measures on your house again because of what Tommy Robinson and Paul Golding, basically the pair of them with this documentary, because of what they've just done. You are now in danger of being attacked. Because I was getting so many messages, just people firing these messages at me saying you're a grass, like just insane stuff. And no one even said to me like, Jayda, is this true? Because obviously it wasn't. I've been involved in right-wing politics and activism for years. And I was probably, before I went to jail, before Tommy came up to prominence, I was probably the most prominent person on the right-wing scene. And then when I went to jail, Tommy rose up. So if anyone had thought logically, they'd say, this doesn't sound right. Like, this woman is... I used to campaign against Hope Not Hate. I used to go out their little venues that they had. If they had like a lefty gathering, I used to go and stick it on them. So I was like... So I think the lowest point for me was realizing that I needed protection on my home and my person, because someone who really a year or two before would have supported me now potentially would want to harm me because of what Tommy and Paul did to cover up Paul's violence. And that was really upsetting, because I'm not in this for fame and money and all the rest of it. I'm in this because I genuinely love my people and I care about people. And I felt like my people were turning on me for a lie, and they didn't even want to hear whether it was true. So yeah, I think that was not the jail, not the losing your house and losing your car and losing £250,000 or any of that. It was that, I think that moment was the lowest point, was when I thought someone who I've stood up for all these years might want to harm me because of what those men have just told them. Probably the lowest point in all of it. And
did you not have a support network?
I have a very tight...
Did you not have any people that you was really close to that like helped support you, like when you was at your lowest with all of this stuff that was happening? Like
I had friends
to take you in and just, you know what I mean, just be like, you know what I mean, it's going to be all right, mate. You know, you'll be all right. We'll get through this, etc.
Well, I had a very small network of people around me, because I'd immersed my entire life was Britain First. Like, I mean, it was like my baby. I'd have done anything for that movement. I put up with being battered because I didn't want to upset that movement, right? I didn't want that movement to be destroyed from within. So I put up with years of abuse, because I knew if I came out and said what was going on, the movement would suffer. That is how much I believed in this cause, and I loved that movement. That movement, for me, I was trying to like steer it down a Christian path. I was using that movement so that I could help grooming gang victims. There was so much work that I'd done over the years. I'd built up massive amounts of people, that contacts through that movement. And then all of a sudden that was gone, because I'd left and then all of this had happened. And so really, even the people that would previously have been my support network, they were told the same lie, and everyone was told, block her. But this is another indication that someone is being dishonest.
What, just block and not talk to you at all?
Yeah, so there was a thing put out.
Don't have no interaction.
Yeah, like persona non grata. So there was the thing put out from Britain First, and it said, cut all ties with her. Block her on every social media platform, block her number. No one is allowed to have contact with her. This was even put out on public forums like VK. They were putting these things out and saying, everybody block this woman. And again, I thought to myself, why aren't there members saying, hold on, this woman's just been to jail. Like, this woman's been in the trenches, not in the trenches in the same sense as you, but in the right-wing activist scene. This woman has been on the front line, sticking it on terrorists. And now we're being told to block her. Why didn't people say, hold on a minute, what's her side of it? That was really, for me, that was damaging, because it was like, well, so then all of a sudden this thing that I'd built with thousands of people involved in it was just gone. And I had some friends that I was very close to, but they didn't really understand it, Sean, if I'm honest, because unless you're involved in that, you don't really, it's a strange life. And
these friends of yours, these were the close-knit friends of yours, but they were the close-knit friends that they weren't sort of like involved in, like, you know, protests,
no politics,
and
no.
Do you know what I mean? And the movement, etc. They were just literally your everyday people, like friends that ones you grew up with, were they? I'm assuming.
Yeah, so friends that I'd grown up with that knew about all of the abuse, because you know, when you're a woman, you talk to your friends, your girlfriends, about this sort of stuff. So they knew all about it over the years. And then all of a sudden, they saw that this not everybody, I have to be fair, not everybody turned on me, but a lot of people did. And and so my friends saw this and were like, what's going on? Now, to be honest, I have to say this because I've got to give credit where it's due. I have had a lot of people contact me over the last few years.
Reach out to offer support.
Well, I've had a lot of people contact me over the last few years and say, we have found out the truth. We saw the documentary. We attacked you online. We found out the truth. And I'm sorry. And I've had, hundreds of messages like that where people have come along and said, we've realized that these guys are liars. We now know the truth. We've read the court case happened. We've read all of that. We know what's gone on. We know they were lying. And we are sorry that we didn't believe you. We're sorry that we took his side. I've probably had hundreds of those messages. So I'm not going to sit here and say that everybody in the right wing's a meanie, because they're not. They're really not. They're and lots of them are just wonderful people. But they got lied to.
Yeah, I bet when you had all their messages, though, I bet that was like probably felt like massive bit of relief for you, didn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it kind of felt like
you felt like you weren't being singled out, like as you say, you was getting singled out from the movement, like you were saying, and you felt like everyone was just turning on you. But then obviously you had, like you say, you had your support network, your close friends that you grew up with, and then obviously you just started getting inundated. You just started getting inundated with all these messages from people reaching out to offer their support. That was a part of, do you know what I mean, the patriot community and stuff.
Yeah, amazing people. Do you know what? The majority of people in the right-wing patriotic movement are salt of the earth. They're the people that this country belongs to. They are so amazing. And when even if they've been lied to,
I'll agree with you, because I've met some really, really lovely people. I've really met some lovely people, especially with the Uncensored Patriots community, and that there's so many lovely people. I mean, even people that I haven't met that, sort of like, I'll be familiar with their voices anyway, even if I haven't met them, because obviously, like I say, I do the spaces and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a nice feeling, man, because like I say, I've had fellow vets message me. One I can highlight one of them, a guy that I talked to that's in the movement. He's been there since the beginning. A fellow veteran, and that's a guy called Scotty G. I met up with him. He came down to where I live. We went out, met him for a pint. Lovely. And then met up with him again. It's lovely, because it's like, I'm not just just talking to people online and not actually establishing real life relationships with them, because I actually am, because I'm actually going out, and because I love going out and I love meeting people, meeting these people and putting a face to their voices. Do you know what I mean? It's
that's
nice
what this is about. These are our people.
It's all about coming together.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean?
And I've always been, anyone who met me during the Britain First rallies back in the day, they know me. I'm a huggy person. Like, if you're at a rally, I'm there. I'm saying hello to everyone. I'm hugging everyone. I'm probably getting told off because I'm meant to be on stage and I'm too busy talking to some old lady who's come to the rally and she's telling me about her grandchildren. But because these are my people and I love them, and I don't care whether they're from up north, from wherever, from Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, England. I don't care. They're my people. Like, and this is what I'm in it for. I'm in it for my people. So those connections that I felt like they were gone forever, and it was quite a dark place actually, but I really just thought, I have to keep going, because I'm on my own. Like, I don't have a husband. I'm on my own and I have to survive. I can't just, sometimes you just want to, you got the ground to swallow you up.
You got no kids, have you? Got no kids, or you got kids?
No, never had kids, never got married, never had kids. And so I really had to just sort of rebuild my life, and I did that. And now the people that I've got around me are just the most amazing people. And so there's a peace, actually. Like, I came to peace with all of this a while ago. It took me quite a while. It was quite upsetting. It was kind of heartbreaking, because Britain First was like this movement that I'd created, and all of the people in it were almost like my children, right? This is how I've kind of felt, was that I'd created this movement, and all these people, these members, they were so supportive. Like, they would come to all of our rallies. If I had a court case, they would come and support me at the court case. They'd stand out in the rain to listen to me give a speech. Like, they were really salt of the earth people. And it was like all of those people had been torn away from me. It was like they were all my children, because I care about these people. This is why I was doing it. And so actually, over the last few years, having so many people come back and say, you know, we understand, or we didn't know where you'd gone, or we'd heard this, but now we know it's a lie. It's brought me a great deal of peace.
I suppose, it bring you a great deal of peace, but also it probably it gets you quite emotional, I suppose, for yourself when you hear these people reach out to you saying, "Oh my God," do you know what I mean? So, like, say you found peace, but then at the same time you're like, do you know what I mean? Oh my God, like, you know, they're saying that, you know, that they're with me now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean? And I think it's probably the hardest part about all of it is, like, everybody makes mistakes, and I'm not saying that like violently attacking someone is a mistake. It's not like dropping your car keys down the drain.
No one's perfect, Jayda.
But no one is perfect, and everyone's got a history. And I'm a Christian. We are all sinners. Like, none of us are sinless. None of us are perfect. Everybody's got a history. And for me, I think the saddest thing is that throughout this whole saga of all of my personal life being plastered all over the TV, like it's entertainment for people to watch, and then having people call me names and call me a liar and all of the rest of it, whereas actually this could have all been resolved if, like, the men involved in this, so namely like Paul and Tommy, had just said, look, we're sorry, we shouldn't have done that. Like, I'm not an unreasonable person. I'm genuinely not, contrary to maybe what the Muslims might have thought of me back in the day, but I'm actually not an unreasonable person. And obviously you have to have time to heal from that level of sustained abuse, because it's very, very damaging on a psychological level as well as physical. It's very damaging. But I can honestly say that people have done far worse. People have killed people, right? People have done worse. And so for me, I suppose the sad thing is that the real sort of closure and forgiveness, because as a Christian, we are told to forgive people, but we're told to forgive people that are sorry. We're not told that we have to forgive people that aren't sorry. If someone doesn't express any level of repentance or sorrow for what they've done, then we're not obliged to forgive them. But I am actually a very reasonable person, and I would be more than happy if somebody wrongs me and said, listen, I hold my hands up. I'm sorry. It was a bad time in my life. I was going through some stuff, whatever. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. I'm actually a very forgiving person. But this just felt like some bizarre snowball effect. Like, I was not only was I put through all of this for 5 years, but then I was made out to be some sort of monster, and it was me that had the scars. Like, so it was just, the whole thing was really difficult. And I don't think I've ever actually spoken to anyone about it this much, but look, you asked the question, and I am at the point now where I kind of think, do you know what? I'm going to defend myself. Like, I haven't for years. This has been going on for years. Even now, people come into my comments online and they're like, "Oh, hell's hope, not hate," and I'm just like, "What? Did you not see the court case? This was proven to be a lie." And you can tell them that, and they still go, "Oh, we still support them." And so, you have to just keep moving. You have to just move on from it. But I did reach a point where I thought I hadn't spoken about it because I couldn't. It was so upsetting. The whole thing was so upsetting. But I've now found a level of peace with it where I think if someone asks me that question, I'm going to answer honestly, and let the jury decide. If the viewers still think that, they don't want anything to do with me, then that's fine. If they think that's acceptable behavior for a man to do that, then I think that's quite sad. But ultimately, I can't let that consume me, and I won't let that destroy me. It was aimed to destroy me. That whole setup was done so that I was shunned and possibly even physically harmed. And I made it through it. So here I am. Here I stand. I can do no other.
I'll say, I've always said this from the beginning, back when I was doing the early spaces and stuff. I've had quite a few people from the beginning. I mean, I've been doing the spaces since, say what, just before January, probably about December last year on X. And yeah, don't get me wrong, I got to a point myself where people were saying to me, Sean, what you're platforming this person for as a guest speaker, this person's X, Y, and Z, whatever, right? I don't like the content on their page, whatever. And my immediate response would literally just be, look, I don't care. That's fair enough. But my point remains the same, right? Irrespective of this person's views, whether they're extreme or mild or neither here nor there, right? As long as they can as long as they can come in and have a respectful conversation, right? Adult to adult, without no personal attacks getting thrown, then crack on.
Yeah.
I don't see no issues in that. Because this is where freedom of speech gets involved. And let's be honest, I think it doesn't matter whether you're left, centre, right, far left, far right, whatever. Everyone deserves the freedom of speech, no matter who you are. And that just goes across the board for anyone.
Yeah, and your position is kind of like a citizen journalist, right? You interview people so that people can hear.
Jayda, do you know what, Jayda? Do you know what? I do this because it's a hobby. I do this because I enjoy holding conversations with people. Like, you know, this is just a hobby for me. Like, I go out and I work a real job. I'm a crane operator, right? I go out and I graft every day. I've always been hard working. Yeah, I've always been hard working. Like I say, do you know what I mean? 6 years in the army, come out of the army, you know, done a stint at Rolls Royce, finished Rolls Royce. I've been through the mill, done loads of jobs. I didn't care what the jobs was. I would not sit there and be out of work. I'd rather be out earning £1 note, even if it was a crap job. As long as I'm bringing that money in to pay the bills and get the bills paid, right, and look after my family, I couldn't care, right?
Yeah.
But that's the being end of it all. Like,
but your role now is like whether people like your guest or not, you're giving people the chance to have their say. And so this for me, I think, is fair, because you might have someone on that I don't agree with.
You've got to be fair. Yeah, I put it this way. I could have someone on that you don't like, that you think you'd be thinking like, why has Sean got him on? But the same rule applies.
I'd never say that, by the way. I wouldn't do that, because I agree with you. I think I'm just
divvying it up as an example, right?
Yeah.
So, like, do you know what I mean? Like, same rule applies to you and to any other person that would come on, right? It doesn't matter, right? As long as myself and this guest speaker can sit there as two adults and hold a respectful conversation, right? No personal attacks, nothing like that. I don't see what the problem is. Like, you can't just listen. You can't just go in and have people on as guest speakers that people are comfortable with listening to, because then that's when it starts to turn into an echo chamber, and you're never going to learn anything outside of that echo chamber, right?
Yeah.
You need to have these discussions. You know, I'll be happy to have someone from Labour come and have a conversation with me. Like, do you know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah. Look, I like
I genuinely want to know, because this is what I'm saying. I genuinely want to know, like, if you don't hold these conversations with these type of people, you're never gonna, you know, sort of like suss out or understand how their mind ticks and why they think the way they do, and why their views are like that. And do you know what I mean? Like, you need to, do you know what I mean? You need to have these conversations. Otherwise, do you know what I mean? You're just going to be going around in circles listening to the same stuff.
Yeah. Now, see, I don't tend to have any sort of discourse with the left anymore, because they hate me so much. They're so far gone that I couldn't even you just can't have a conversation with them, because they're just crazy. And all they'll do is just go racist, 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 Nazi, Nazi, Nazi.
I can't
But
stand him.
You're in a position where you are, you can reasonably say, look, come on, let's have you're interviewing people. Come on, let's have a chat. Let's keep it decent, like no cheap shots or anything like that. Yeah. And I think we've seen, like
I told you before, I'm not into the whole gotcha, like
no.
you out or I'm not into that crap, right? I think that's dirty. I don't like that stuff. I like I say, with everyone, I always break it down before we even hit the record button and start recording. Right, we'll go through these, right? Are you happy with that? Is this all right? Do you want to swerve something, right? Because if you do, that's happy. I respect that. We won't go there with that. You get me, right? I won't put pressure. I won't. Do you know what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to say. I'll only go, with what we've agreed on.
Which is a lot more than most people do. I mean, I don't mind.
It's a professional arrangement, isn't it, really?
Yeah, you know I mean? Yeah. And I think if someone's got like a real problem answering something, me personally, I always say to people, ask me anything. Like, because, and if they ask me something that I don't have a strong opinion on, or that I don't know much about, like if somebody said to me, what's your opinion on the Harry Potter films? I'd have to say, I don't know, because I haven't watched them, right? Yeah. So, you know what I mean? Like, I'll only talk about subjects that I'm secure in. But even if someone presses me and they say, like, I got interviewed by a Muslim guy, right? And he was saying to me, like, you were going into these mosques, and he said about his family and being here. And he said, do you think I belong here? And I said, no, I don't think you belong here. Like, I wasn't like really like confrontational and rude. I just said, no, I don't think you belong here. And so even that, like, you can imagine, these guys have seen me for years running in and out of their mosques, walking through the streets with a cross. But I said to him, look, if you want to interview me, like, we'll do an interview. Ask me whatever you like, but you might not always like my reply, but I'll be honest, because I think that's the main thing. Like, I hate lies. I just think, be honest. You don't have to be rude, but be honest. So if he's going to say to me, do I belong here? I'm going to say, in all honesty, no, I don't think you do belong here. But that's not me sitting there being abusive to him or being like muggy. Like you said, you just got to have a common.
I get what you're saying. And to be fair, he's the one that put that line of question to you, right? Yeah. So he wanted to ask you that question, so you can't whimper out on an honest response back to it.
No.
But he put that question to you. So what I'm trying to say is, back to, as long as it's held respectfully and there's no personal attacks, anything like that, then crack on with it. Like, I don't see no issues with it. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who I speak to, right? No matter how extreme their views are, etc. That doesn't mean to say that I agree with their views that they have, right? Same as where they probably don't agree with the views that I have. And that's fair enough, because that's a difference of opinion. That's a difference of belief. That's a difference of, two different standing viewpoints for two completely different individuals that have got two completely different mindsets, right?
Yeah.
So this is where you just got to just sort of like, do you know what I mean? Just that's where you know what I mean? It's where you meet, and that's where you just sort of like have that respect for each other. You respect, right? You've got your beliefs, you've got your opinion. You respect my beliefs, you respect my opinion, and that's it. Simple.
It's the art of debate. Like, we used to be able to debate in this country, and now everyone just screams at each other. But actually, it's okay to have different opinions. You just you can debate, like, without it turning into some crazy. And it is actually usually the left that go crazy. Like, if I'm going to be honest, it's normally the lefties that go
6 o'clock in the morning. I've seen videos there. 6 o'clock in the morning, the Americans are running into the beach and screaming into the sea because Trump's just been elected again. It's like,
well, yeah, it says it all. Yeah.
Absolute lunatics. Honestly. But yeah, so I want to just finish off with like today and the future, really. So where are you now with the new movement party? So you say you've started your own party, and it's the Christian Nationalist Party, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I just want to quickly touch base on one more point with this. So
Yep.
with immigration, I fully support the fact that illegal migrants should not be coming on the boats. They should not be coming over to our country. They should. I've said it so many times. Do you know what I mean? If I had it my way, I'd have the Royal Navy deployed out in the Channel as a deterrent.
Yeah.
And the moment they get seen in the middle of the Channel, the Royal Navy be like, what do you think you're doing? About turn, ta-la, we're taking you back, right?
Yeah.
Shit back, right? Sorry for swearing. That's the first time I swore. Right. Was doing so well, mate. Right. So it's, yeah, even though that costs so, even though they turn around and people will be like, oh, well, it costs low. You don't understand the costs. It costs so much money, all the resources, and having the Royal Navy constantly do that day in and day out. Well, it cost a damn sight less than what we're paying at the moment from housing them in these hotels and in these HMOs, feeding them, giving them money, right? You know, etc., etc. I reared my head down at the Epping Bell Hotel the other day when I was off and I was out of work, and I just had a little bit of a little bit of a scope of what was going on there. I've never been there, and I see these. I see that, I noticed what the worrying thing is, that I noticed that from the Bell Hotel in Epping, they released, like, the security man literally allows these unvetted men that had come over here illegally to step out of the hotel and just go on a little jolly up and just swan out and do whatever they want. And and potential, and let's face facts. If you come here illegally into this country, you are a criminal. Straight away, by default, by entering a country illegally, you are then a criminal, right?
Absolutely.
So they are basically allowing criminals to swan out of these hotels and go off God knows where, just scurry off to, I don't know where they're going, and do God knows what. Exactly. And then you know, and now and then next thing you know, you're seeing all these news alerts. You know, woman got stabbed, you know, and killed. A woman called Rhiannon White, perforated her brain, screwdriver, and this was from a hotel that she was actually working at. He followed her to the train station and killed her at the train station for no reason, right? Wayne Broadhurst, they still haven't mentioned him in Parliament, right? Sickening in Uxbridge. Literally, they've never mentioned, they've not even acknowledged his name.
I was in tears. Like, to be quite honest,
the man did absolutely. He's out walking his dog. He did absolutely nothing. He didn't deserve that. He had a family, right?
Honestly, it's so. I was in tears that day because I just thought it's such a mundane act. Like, he came home from work and he was just walking his dog. Millions of us do that every day.
Yeah.
We walk our dogs along the streets that we know because they're our home streets, and just for no reason, he was just killed in the street. And honestly, like, I was so upset. I did a broadcast. I think I did it that day, and I think I was in tears. I was like so close to tears because I just was like, this is one of my people, and they're like, we're being like slain in the street now by these illegal immigrants, and none of us have got a say in this. Like, none of us got given a say. And this man, I never knew Wayne Broadhurst, but he's one of my people. Like, I love my people, and honestly, it really unsettled me. I mean, I hope everybody felt that. I think they did. I saw online. It was a different.
I went in. I did go in. I think I done a video on that. I did. Pretty sure I done a video on that, and I went in on the government for that. The fact that they still hadn't acknowledged or mentioned his name in the House of Commons at all, I thought it was absolutely disgusting. And it's just going to show that they really do not care of, you know, the lives lost on our streets. You know, the British people, they don't give a they don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care at all. But yeah, and I still think I'm looking into doing something for that. So yeah, I'm looking into doing something for that because it's constantly playing on my brain. So yeah, what would your message be to women in controlling and abusive relationships?
Just
What
go
would your
to
message
someone.
be?
It's so difficult because like I did not handle this very well at all because I felt so trapped. And the whole point of these controlling relationships is that you feel trapped. And my circumstances were very unique because I couldn't even say, right, I'm just going to leave and just go and apply for a job like stacking shelves or whatever just to get me back on my feet, because I was in the newspapers every week as this massive racist, so no one was going to employ me. Like, and so
Yeah,
all of this was preventing me from. I knew I felt so trapped. I just felt stuck. And but look, it doesn't actually matter whether you're, Fransen, the right wing extremist, or whether you are one of the ladies that there was a lady I was in jail with, and she had gone through something similar for 15 years. And one day she snapped and she killed her husband, and they put her in jail because she snapped, because she finally, after being beaten like a dog for 15 years, just snapped. And
yeah,
I thought to myself, if she'd just gone to someone, then she wouldn't be in jail, he wouldn't be dead. And so the knock-on effect is massive, and it affects your family, it affects everybody, because everybody is damaged by it. It's impossible to not be. So all I would say is just find someone that you can trust. And if you don't have that, it is so difficult. Like I can't even sit here and say that I've got the answers, because really I've spent the last few years just rebuilding my life from scratch and not really having a massive amount of support, but just like I go to a good church, I've got good people around me, a small number but good people around me. And now with the Christian Nationalist Party, we're quite fussy about who we work with, not because we're judgmental, because we're all, none of us are perfect, but we just don't. We some people that are like really involved in sort of really contentious stuff or things that we don't agree with, we just give it a swerve, because we're kind of once bitten, twice shy. Like, I want people around me that I think are trustworthy, that would never harm me or harm the movement. And
yeah,
and so I'm not even really a good advocate to say how you handle these situations, because I personally didn't handle it well. I didn't have anyone to go to. I felt so trapped. But I just hope that there aren't women that are. I just hope, I don't want any woman or man. Do you know what? Men can be subjected to this stuff as well. Like, it's incredible what people will do to other people when they're in close relationships. Like, actually, when you think about what humans are capable of, it's really sad, because you kind of put your trust in humanity and think that, we've all got our flaws, but inherently you like to think that we would love each other and look out for each other and want the best for each other. But the bottom line is there are bad people out there. And I just hope that we can all heal, like as a nation, particularly. We're so fragmented. The right wing is very fragmented. There's all these groups. None of them, some people don't talk to each other. Some people hate this person and all the rest of it. And that's very fragmented. But on a bigger scale,
there's a lot of infighting.
oh yeah, huge amount. But then again, there's a lot of it's justified. There's stuff that's going on with foreign powers like Israel and all this stuff that people don't agree with. They're like, look, I don't agree with that. And so a lot of it is justified. And people say, I don't want anything to do with that person. And then so there's all these smaller groups. But in the broader sense, that is the case in the country. Like, we've got communities, especially, you're from London, this. You don't even know your neighbour in London. Like, in London, obviously London, your neighbour's probably an immigrant now.
My mum moved us out of London when I was about 6 years old. She actually moved us down to the South Coast. And then when I was 10, that's when I went in the army for 6 years. But yeah.
Yeah.
But I've still got a lot of family. Like, my nan lives down in Croydon still, etc. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I used to live near Croydon, and Croydon is such a dangerous place now. But
yeah,
even on a broader scale, We've been encouraged to be very individualistic. We've been encouraged that they don't want us going to church. They don't want us all meeting together. They don't want us looking out for each other. They don't want us having big families. They don't want people getting married and having loads of kids and looking after each other. That the government don't want us to do that. They want us all to be at each other's throats while they welcome in all of these third worlders that are not our people. And so now more than ever.
Can I ask you why you think that is? Just your personal opinion. Why?
I think there are agendas.
They continue to facilitate. You know, why can't they just shut that border? Why do they continue to try to continue to facilitate it? Because when in comparison, when you look at the UK and then you look at America, right? Trump said in an interview with Bev Turner, that recent interview that he held with Bev Turner from GB News, he said to her, how many illegal migrants do you think has crossed the American border within the last 6 months? She was like, no. So 0. And look at the size difference of America compared to the UK. We've got this little pond between from Dover to Calais, and it's like, and then you compare that to the size of America. We're talking about the United States, right? And we literally just can't stop some little dinghies coming over on that little bit of water.
We can.
We can. But
I mean, you've already said just
tonight. This is what literally just pushes you towards the fact. Well, clearly it's plain for everyone to see that the government are consistently facilitating this to happen.
100%. Yeah.
For what reason? I don't know.
I think there are specific agendas at play. I think there is an agenda to do this, but I also think there's a massive elephant in the room that people aren't acknowledging. And this is a byproduct of the agenda. So there is a Marxist agenda to degrade and demoralize Western societies, right? This is a physical plan that was put down on paper to demoralize. I love
Western society. I want Western society to be left alone.
Absolutely. And so what they've done is they've discouraged people, they've demoralized people. Tucker Carlson actually just did a very good piece on this about the demoralization and like the people that appear to feel defeated. We are not having large families. We've got an abortion rate now of nearly 48%. 48%. Now, the immigrants aren't killing their babies. 78% of those abortions are white Brits. We are literally murdering millions of our people. Since the Abortion Act in 58 years ago, the Abortion Act came in. Since then, we've killed 15 million babies in the UK. 15 million of our people we have killed. Not me, I've never had one, but, you know, British people have killed. Now, that almost correlates with the amount of immigrants that are in the country. So it's one thing to say we don't want these immigrants coming in, but at the same time, we have to stop abortion. We have to stop killing our babies, and we have to start having big families and building communities where our kids are all together, they're safe, we're looking out for them, we're teaching them, not the woke pedophiles that are teaching them about trans stuff. You know, we're making sure that they're safe. And, you know, that is actually how we survive what's going on now. There's lots of talk about remigration and all of that. And look, I would support remigrating people. Like I'm happy for that. But we need to be realistic about this. I don't know at what point in the future someone's going to be able to round up like 20 million immigrants and remigrate them out of the country. I don't know when that's going to happen, if ever. But I would support it.
I wanted to just touch base on that, the remigration subject. So I just wanted to just quickly draw a line on this with yourself as well, because I just want to know where you draw a line in the sand. So, so obviously, let's just use myself as an example. So my dad, he's from India, right? But my dad came to Britain when he was a baby in the 60s, right? From Madras, okay? My nan brought him over legally, not illegally. Right, worked hard, right, working class. He drove the London double-decker buses all around London, right. Been a bus driver for most of his life. My nan, she was midwife, and my granddad, he worked on the British Railways, right, to the point where he then got a pension from the when he retired from the British Railways, right, and he was also in the Indian Navy as well. So he was an ex-military man as well, but he was in the Indian Navy. Anyway, Anglo-Indian, come over, worked out, not a problem, in the 60s, right? I'm a byproduct of my dad and my mum. My mum was born in Brixton. Her mum was Irish. My nan was Irish from County Louth, I believe, right? And my granddad, or my mum's dad, was a Brixton. He was born in Brixton as well, right? So, yeah. So, yeah, and then look at me. Do you know what I mean? Joined the army, 6 years in the army, blah, blah, blah. Hard grafter, family man, etc. Would you look at someone like me and my dad and my nan and be like, right, all you three, you've got to go back to India?
Well, so let me just point something out, because we've spoken about your heritage before, okay?
Yeah.
Briefly, but like you've just explained it in full. But your
situation, you need to explain
absolutely.
things in full to get clear.
Exactly right, and I yeah, absolutely, because there is this big movement at the moment, remigration, and I've put it on record. I'm an ethno-nationalist. I would support remigration. There are nuances to this argument, and this is an absolutely like pinpoint example of one of those occasions, because from what you've explained to me, if I've understood this correctly, well, you are a portion Indian, right? I wouldn't have even guessed that. I mean, I can see you look you're quite dark. You're dusky. I'd say maybe you got a bit of Hungarian or something. Like, I wouldn't know, but you can see you're quite dark, but you're not dark skinned. It's just you dark hair. But then actually a lot of Irish people are dark. So anyway, but the point is,
big white block because I've got vitiligo.
Okay, do you know what? Actually, until you leant forward, you can't see that. I didn't even notice that until you leant forward.
Yeah, you can now.
Yeah. Well, it makes you unique. So, speaking of unique, your situation is quite unique because, as you've explained to me, your grandparents are, as you call, Anglo-Indian. Your grandparents are mixed. Your father is a product of Anglo-Indians. Therefore, he is mixed, and you are from your dad, who is a product of Anglo-Indian, who's mixed. That's why he's very. I've seen a picture of your dad. Right, your dad's fair.
Yeah,
that's why you are effectively so fair that I'd never in a million years look at you and say you're an Indian. Right, I wouldn't say it about your dad either. Like, there's no way that I would say that. And so this is where this needs to get serious, is because there is this talk about everyone's got to go back. And I have said that I support remigration. So let me give you an example. Let me give you a parallel. So your family is there and you're basically along the line. So 3 generations are still mixed. Now, I'm not going to go all the way back through your family tree and your genealogy to work out at which point someone was actually Indian and not mixed, not Anglo-Indian. Because
if I'm honest, I'm a bit of a mongrel.
Well, listen, I'm part Dutch, part Irish, part English. So I mean, I'm a mongrel. I'm a European mongrel, but we've all got a bit of something, most of us anyway. Yeah. But so I don't know how far it goes back before your family were mixed. But if your grandparents were Anglo-Indian, this is presumably as a result of the empire. Actually, Anglo-Indian is a very it's a very small group of people. It's a minority of people. So even as a result of the empire, there were people that would mix, but it was actually quite a small number of people in comparison to the scale of India, if you look at. So to take your family is actually a good example, because you're very slightly mixed. Your dad is slightly mixed. Your grandparents are mixed. I don't know how much further that goes back. For me, this is very different to, for example, someone like Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak is Indian. Both of his parents are Indian. He's Indian. He was born here, but he's Indian. Rishi Sunak should never have been allowed to hold office. He's an Indian Hindu. He should never have been allowed to be the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. I don't agree with it. I'll never agree with it. I think that position should be reserved for British men. And he's not British. His parents were Indian. He was born in Britain. But where you're born doesn't, this is the argument with FNATs. Doesn't matter where you're born. It doesn't make you of that. So, for example, your grandparents were Anglo-Indian, which means they were mixed. If they were born in India, it still doesn't negate the fact that part of them was British. I don't know how big that part was, but part of them was British.
They don't even know, they don't even know any other language other than English. That's
right. Yeah. And so presumably it was quite a dominant part, which is why you're fair. By contrast, I watched a documentary, a conversation that was had the other day between two guys. One was a civic nationalist, one was an ethno-nationalist. And the civic nationalist was talking about his friend, and he said he's a third-generation immigrant to the UK. His grandparents moved here, his parents were born here, this guy was born here. But he said he's his Ghanaian friend. Now, this is where the contrast comes in, is because if the grandparents were Ghanaian and the parents were both Ghanaian, and therefore this guy is Ghanaian and he's identifying as Ghanaian, but he lives in Britain, he's still Ghanaian. Right. Now, he can say, I live in Britain. I could have been born in Nigeria. But if I sat here now and told you, if I said to you now, actually, I was born in Nigeria and therefore I'm a Nigerian, would you believe that I'm a Nigerian? No. Because I don't think that's plausible. Or if I said to you, I'm Chinese because I was born in China. My parents are British, but I was born in China. So therefore I'm Chinese. No one's buying that. No one's buying it. So actually, the whole birthplace argument is it needs to be taken in the proper context. Another example of this would be, for example, Ben Habib. Now, I've just seen Ben Habib has publicly supported a woman who said no one born in Pakistan should hold public office in the UK, right? I agree, actually. I think that if you hold public office in the UK, you should be born in the UK. I do agree with that. Ben Habib is part Pakistani, was born in Pakistan, didn't come to England until he was a teenager, and he's part English. And I think arguably, and I think arguably people would say that Ben Habib is probably one of the most rational, patriotic men in Britin.
Very intelligent man,
really
when he was
intelligent.
Up on stage and he was cool, and he was calling Keir Starmer or
yeah. But he has just said, when there was a woman online that said no one born in Pakistan should hold public office, he has come out and said, I understand why she is saying this, because the situation in the UK is so bad that people feel that we need to remove any alternative. It has to be someone British born, British bred, and British by heritage. And
I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on this, because I'm just trying to remember back to when me and Ben spoke. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it might not have been Ben. It might have been someone else, but they said to me, yeah, I agree with the fact that you should only be swearing your oath if you're getting sworn in as an MP, as a member of Parliament. You should only be swearing your oath over the Bible, because fundamentally, the country that you're living in has been built on the foundations of Christianity.
Yeah.
So therefore, by default, there should not be any other book of religious text other than the Bible itself, and that's it.
Absolutely. The only person that should be able to hold office in this country,
you could caveat that with, would it work? Do you think it would work if you saw a Christian go over to somewhere like Saudi Arabia and went into their parliament, got into their parliament, and then when it came to swearing the oath to Saudi Arabia to be sworn in as an MP in Saudi Arabia or whatnot, and then the Christian goes, I'm not swearing my hand on your book, I'm swearing my oath on the Holy Bible, they wouldn't allow that.
course they wouldn't. And I wouldn't
chance.
expect them to. Do you know what? I respect the fact that they wouldn't allow it because it's normal. Just like I respect the fact
their country and that's their rules. So you've got to
exactly.
respect that. And I would respect a country and their rules. You have to.
Yeah,
right?
and that's why I think that Britain actually, and this will upset people, right? I'm going to upset some feminists here, but hey ho. I actually don't even think that women should be in politics. I think that politics should be reserved for British Christian men. That's what I think. This is a Christian nation. It was the men that built this nation. It was the men that defended this nation. I think that we need to get back to traditional values, and it should be British men that are in charge of this nation. And the fact that we had an unelected Hindu Indian prime minister as our who was voted in by his peers in the Tory party, we weren't given a say. The public weren't given a say. We got rid of him. Obviously, we haven't got him now, but we've now got Keir Starmer. But I don't think that should have ever been allowed. And I would never presume to say that Nigeria must have even a 10%. I wouldn't even say 5%. 5% of the Nigerian parliament should be white. Why should it? They're black. They're black Africans. Leave them alone. Like, this is where it kind of makes sense everywhere in the world until you get to the UK. And then we're supposed to just say, oh, yeah, it's fine that people swear an oath on the Quran. Like, it's not fine. This isn't normal. And so I actually respect the fact that Ben Habib said, no, I agree with that. He said, and I was born in Pakistan. So he's acknowledging that he was born in Pakistan, but he thinks it's entirely reasonable that this woman has said no one that was born in Pakistan should hold office, which means he couldn't be the prime minister. Now, I don't know what that means because I think he is the leader of the party, or maybe the other guy is. But, do you know, I do think that, like, there's my point is, again, he himself is a man who is mixed and can acknowledge that this situation has gone way too far. And what I would say as well about your father is something that's really important to point out, is that your dad comes from a line of mixed people. And I mean, I don't know him, but I suspect that when your dad was growing up, for want of a better term, right? But I'm just going to speak candidly. He was probably, most of his friends were probably white, and he was probably like a token sort of quite dark person, brown person. He's not dark, like brown person. Because back in the day, even a few decades ago, no one actually, and this is what they discussed this on this documentary the other day, this CivNat and this FNAT, actually, not so long ago when immigration wasn't out of control, no one batted an eyelid. It was like, oh yeah, these are all white Brits, and this guy's from wherever, Jamaica or India, or he's Anglo-Indian, whatever. And it wasn't like this big thing where there's like gangs of all these foreigners and entire areas colonized. You would have the odd person that was an immigrant, and no one batted an eyelid. The government, because they're forcing all of these people into the country, and you say about illegal immigration on for example, in 2023, there were 1.4 million visas given legally to people to come into the country. 1.4 million people were invited into the country to live here permanently. Only 23,000 came in on the boats. So yes, the boats are a problem. They need to be stopped. But we also need to stop inviting millions of people legally into the country, because even if those people aren't criminals, they're going to have different cultures.
I'll quickly put this out there, right? I believe that legal migration can work, right? However, I don't believe in the legal migrants that only come here to just jump on the benefit system, right? Not work, and they just want to have a jolly up. I completely disagree with that. They shouldn't be allowed to do that at all. So if that's what the end game is, then I think they should be sent back. But that's for economic migrants that are coming here to take the piss and to jump on the benefit system. Because why do we have to allow people in legally to just come here that they don't want to go to work, they don't want to find a job, and they just want to take the piss and go on the benefit system straight away? And Do you know what I mean? And essentially, do you know what I mean? All the hard grafting working class are funding it. I don't agree with that.
Yeah, it's madness. It's
They want
madness.
to come. But then you got the other side. They come over here and they graft and they accept, you know, our British culture, our values, and they assimilate. But I've got a problem. That's absolutely fine. They're the people that you would want, right? Don't
So
want
yeah,
people
this is where we differ.
taking the piss.
Yeah, now this is where we differ because I don't want any immigration. I want it all stopped. I think immigration is so far out of control. I think that a country that's got 70 million people.
But this is what I'm saying. This is why these discussions can be held and people can agree to disagree.
Yeah,
Like,
of course.
I don't agree with that, but you'd respect my opinion, and you know what I mean. Like, whereas
I understand your position. Like, I get your position. What I don't get is when people say, I understand you saying that you think that some immigrants who come in and are going to contribute, and they assimilate, they should be welcome. Now, I don't hold to that view. I think that
like literally no rap sheet. They don't cause no trouble.
Like
they
clean
don't
record.
commit no crime. They're lovely people, and they do you know what I mean? They're lovely to be around, and they assimilate, they adopt our way of life. They contribute and pay back into society, and they generally just want a better life, and they work hard for that, and do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
I don't see no problem with them. They're lovely people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and so although I don't agree with that because I just want all immigration stopped because I think it's out of control, I understand that. What I don't get is the point of view where, like, for example, recently there's been all of these discussions that people have been having where you've got, say, two people come over from Kenya, say, a man and a woman, and they live in the UK and they have a baby, and the baby is Kenyan, yeah, because the mum and dad are Kenyan. So if the mum and dad are Kenyan, the baby's going to be Kenyan. Doesn't matter if they had the baby in Germany, the baby wouldn't be German. If they had him in China, he wouldn't be Chinese, he'd still be Kenyan. What I don't understand, I get where you're saying that you would want to welcome these people. I feel differently, but I understand that position. But what I don't get is when these, like, civic nationalists, I guess you call them, would say, no, that guy is English or that guy's British. So he's not. He's Kenyan. Just as much as if I was born in Kenya, I wouldn't be Kenyan. I'd still be British, but I'd be born in Kenya. It doesn't mean like I'd be a resident in Kenya. And they could even give me a piece of paper and say, you are a citizen of Kenya, but I'm not. I wouldn't make me a Kenyan.
I understand what you mean by that bridge when you're trying to bridge that. Yeah, I get where you're coming from. Yeah, I understand what you mean. So, one thing, just going to wrap up, mate. One thing you wish people actually understood about you as a person. What's the one thing you really wish people actually understood about you?
Wow. Well, I would like to think that people understand that I've been involved in this, and I continue to be involved in this Christian nationalist scene because I care and I genuinely love people. And the place that I've been coming from all through the years, through Britain First, with the Christian Nationalist Party, all through those years, even back when I went to the EDL rallies back in the day, the whole common thread has been one of love and positivity. I never got into this because I'm angry or I'm hateful or I'm bitter. It's quite the contrary. I got involved in this because I just love my people so much. And my people were created in the image of God. Like, I don't hate anyone, whether they're Muslim, whether they're immigrants, even the illegal immigrants. I don't hate these people. I really hate the people, the establishment that are facilitating the downfall of our country. But the human beings, I don't actually have hatred in my heart for human beings. I know what's best for us, though. And what's best for us is nationalism, is to come together and live in our own countries and to embrace Christianity. And so I hope that, I do hope that people who, if they take the time to listen to this, because we've been talking for a long time, but I hope that people would see or would feel that I'm genuine and I'm honest, and I'll always give an honest answer to anything that I'm asked. And even if it's not what people want to hear, or some things you and I have said that I've said I don't agree with that, but I think you have to be You just got to be honest, and you've got to come from the right place. So that's what I would hope, that my legacy isn't, there's that crazy redhead marching around with a cross looking all angry, that actually the reason she was doing it is because the kids are getting groomed, the you know, there's terrorists in the country, and she's just cares that much about her people that she's willing to go to jail for them. I hope that people can see that one day.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming on, Jayda. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on today.
Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. I hope people can take something away from this interview. And I would just like to finish off on a quick bit of text here. I would just like to reiterate, right, that I cannot corroborate Jayda's claims within regards to Paul Golding. And the reason behind that is because I gave Paul the opportunity to discuss his personal and professional relationship he had with Jayda Fransen, but he chose not to. But I was told prior to the interview that that subject was not on the table to be discussed. So I just wanted to put that on the table and just leave it there. All right.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair enough.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot, mate. And I'll see you soon.
All right, mate. Take care. God bless.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
See ya.